Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hivemind Recap Podcast, September 2021, Part 2, the EPs and Albums of September. If you're unaware, we had to split up the month of September into two parts because September was just that fucking stacked, and it was not going to be feasible for us to discuss everything within a 3-hour time frame. So we split it up into two parts. This episode, we're talking about albums and EPs. As I mentioned, we got a whole lot to talk about. I'm excited. How y'all feeling?
Yee!
Do you have to ask me?
Right. Right, yeah. I'll speak on Justin's behalf here. Justin is not feeling very good.
We
Yep,
passed
I
along the
decided-
Hivemind plague, because I had it last episode.
Well,
Now
no, I
Justin's
also
got it.
had it. I was
Oh,
also pretty garbage last episode. It's just I got my shot yesterday for the Rona.
Poor it, man. So I had one side effect from mine, and it was just that I was really tired. Like, I had to wake up early to go get it for my appointment. I got there, I drank like 2 cups of coffee, I went, I got it, I was out like an hour later. That shit put me
Oh,
on
no.
my ass.
No, I've got like a fever and it's rough.
Oof.
All I had was a sore arm.
Yeah, kind of same here. I never really had any bad side effects. I guess that proves Justin is the weakest one here, so he will be the first to disappear by natural
I
selection.
also got a different shot than you guys.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess.
I mean, that was
maybe.
your choice.
Yeah, weakest link of the
It really
Hivemind
wasn't.
exposed.
Weakest link, be gone to natural
No.
selection.
We're now putting Justin in his entirety behind a paywall as the weakest link. Like, it's no longer his content. Like, we're gonna lock him up, and if you want to see him again, it's $5 a month. It's like a petting zoo. We're gonna charge admission, and you can go in and just kind of admire him.
This is getting dark.
We're 2 minutes into
I will
this.
remember this.
Justin's got this in the back of his head. Our day of reckoning will come.
So yeah, if you're new here, welcome. This is the Hivemind Recap Podcast. We're going to be talking about hard rock, alt rock, metalcore, other shit that we listen to each month. I'm here with my usual peoples, Justin, Derek, Jacob. Does it count for the bingo sheet that I forgot at the beginning? Like, does it still count that I introduced you guys 3 minutes into the episode?
I'm not gonna
Still
lie. I
good,
thought
you're
you
good.
had already introduced us, and
No,
you
I
just did it
hadn't.
twice. So
No, I
Yeah, I'm
hadn't.
lost.
All I said was like, I don't even. I said something. I like opened it up to you guys to speak, but I didn't mention your names, and I was scared of the bingo card.
It's a good thing I'm not keeping track of the bingo card. Then we got to make a new edition.
Yeah, I
To
forgot
put
to. I
Justin
forgot
in
to
a
make
zoo.
I forgot to make a new bingo card for this week, but we'll just use the other one for September. The one
I'm
we
sure.
used. The one we used for part 1, you can use for this episode too. You can find it on our Instagram and Twitter at HiveMindRadio_.
Ooh,
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
that was clean.
Thank you. My radio show is rubbing off on me. I'm getting back into the swing of things. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we get into the shitload of EPs and albums to talk about this month?
Speaking of that radio show, you can check it live Tuesdays 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
wecsfm.com. There's also a video feed at the bottom of the website apparently, so you can watch me rock out by myself on my phone.
Let's go. You would think that Jake would be the one to shill his radio show, and instead it's been 2 episodes in a row where Justin does it for him, and then Jake's like, "Oh yeah, that thing. I do that sometimes."
Yeah. Yeah. I feel subconsciously I feel like I'm starting to phase it out because I know like in a year's time it's not going to exist because I'm no longer going to be at college.
That's true, man.
It's alright. It's alright. I look out for you.
The
behind that
podcast is
paywall.
taking dominance. It's taking dominance and it's taking priority at this point.
It's okay. You get the rest of the hive mind. You got shooters. We'll go up there. We'll get you in the building. You continue to do the radio show. Don't ask how. All right, just leave the details to us. You go in there. You play the music.
It'd be like the Ice Nine Kills Rainy Day music video.
Yes, precisely. I call dibs on being the cute woman.
I'd like to see you try, actually. That'd be funny.
Dude, look, we get to 100 subs on the Hivemind YouTube channel. I will cosplay as a hot woman. That is a promise.
I think we
So
can.
if you
We
want
can.
to see me dress up like a woman,
You need no.
be sure to subscribe
you need-
to our YouTube
You
channel.
need to do this to like you need to do it to like a concert or something.
Dog, I don't know how bold you think I am. No.
Yeah, I think just cosplaying as like a hot girl for 100 subs. I don't know,
I
like
think it's a realistic goal.
I think
Look,
yeah.
every day between now and then, I'll just hit chest day every single day, and I'll just have like massive pecs by the time it's ready. I'll look fantastic.
But by the time you hit that cosplay, you'll be doing 400-pound back squats.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Yeah, working out
that's-
to better yourself and progress your mental health. No. Working out to help meet a sub goal so you can look like you have titties by the time you have to cosplay as a woman. Now there is a fitness goal.
What is going on?
Madness. This is madness. Let's dial things in a bit, I think.
We made a fantasy about Justin. Now Derek's got one. Jake, what are you?
What am I gonna do? What should I do for 250 subscribers when you hit that in 3 years? That's a great question. I know I said that when I hit 50 followers on Twitch, I would play copyrighted music on stream, but that doesn't feel like a very big goal.
Ooh.
That doesn't feel like a very big goal.
Copyrighted music.
That also doesn't seem like a very. I don't know.
Yeah,
People
what the
do that
fuck?
all the
What?
time anyway.
I was gonna say, how are you gonna make that a goal for this? Hey guys, 50 subs and I'll get the channel shut down.
I'll come up with something for
music,
next
boys. It's devolving fast.
Let's talk about some fucking music. We're gonna start out with one of Justin's babies. At least I think you would classify them as that at this point. Mosaic have dropped a new EP called Spectrum.
Like a moth to a flame, I am caught by her gaze. She's holding the cards and I'm playing the game.
I'll get what I have to say out of the way. This EP is pretty good. The 4 tracks that it has, plus like the 2 like remixes, like the acoustic and the remix. I thought it was pretty good. I think Overboard is really the only one that I haven't really gone back to as much as the others. But Intentions and Overboard are the 2 new tracks, and Intentions is really good. That is pure post-hardcore.
And we do know that you are the post-hardcore guy.
Resident
I dabble
junkie.
a little bit.
Yeah, to bounce off of that, I was revisiting this. I didn't really go back to it much throughout the month, but I was revisiting this just to refresh myself before this episode, and I found myself enjoying it more than I remembered. Solitude in particular, I did not remember being as good as it ended up being on revisiting it earlier today. Definitely a post-hardcore EP, and post-hardcore fans should check this out because you will probably like it if you're into it as much as Justin is.
Yeah, Day by Day is still the best one, and the
Yeah, I would
acoustics
agree with
are
that.
Pretty good.
I would agree with Day by Day being the best, but Solitude was definitely the biggest grower between my first listen and now.
I can agree with that.
This was like, I got to Solitude and Day by Day, and my first thought was that this was kind of like Paloma, Galleons, and Time the Valuator all had a love child. And then I hit Intentions and Overboard, and the instrumentation shifted to something more like Strawberry Girls or Eternity Forever. It was more like light and airy. Because that was the highlight for me on this whole EP, was the instrumentation, and especially the guitar work, was very, like, relaxing. Like, I heard that light, airy guitar tone hit, and I had, like, cherry blossoms in my head, like, there was a breeze. I was vibing. I enjoyed this a lot more than I expected to, because I didn't really have any strong expectations going into it. And this is, for being post-hardcore, I feel like this EP is just a whole-ass vibe.
Yeah, it's pretty much everything I could say on that.
Check it out. For sure, absolutely. I think it's a very, if nothing else, it's a very enjoyable listen.
Yeah.
Between the vocals and the flowing instrumentation, I was surprisingly very happy with this.
Definitely a smaller up-and-coming band that has a lot of potential for growth.
Absolutely. Don't sleep.
Yep.
While I liked the Mosaic EP, something I didn't like were these 5 new B-sides from Escape the Fate off their latest album, Chemical Warfare.
I've been feeling like hey now, stop for a minute, watch
somehow worse album artwork.
Yeah. Actually?
I mean, yeah. So they really did just take the thing, they threw it in a paint.net. They're like, we're gonna change the color slider like 2 inches to the left. Yeah, this is fine.
But wait, you're not giving them enough credit. They added a little text box underneath Chemical Warfare that says B-sides.
Ooh, new textware. Great. I feel the same about each of these songs that I do about the album. And I feel like they're all just aggressively okay.
Yeah.
Like
Pretty
nothing
much.
you could, besides the Lindsey Sterling feature, you could ask me.
I get it.
Yeah. You could ask me to name one memorable moment off that Escape the Fate album, and I couldn't do it. I remember that I would listen to it, and I would get about halfway through each song, and I'd be like, "Damn, I am so bored." And I lied. There may be a memorable moment because I'm trying to think, where is it? Where's Chemical Warfare? There it is. I think I hit Demons and I audibly yawned. I got to track 8 of 12 and I yawned. And I was like, yeah, this is over. And it's more digestible here because it's only 5 songs, but it's all just, regular average hard rock.
If you listen to Chemical Warfare, you know what you're getting off of these 3 new B-sides and the 2 acoustics.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nothing is surprising you. What I will say is that I think Shut Up and Listen is surprisingly good. Compared to the rest of the album, which, outside of Invincible featuring Lindsey Sterling and Not My Problem, is a very forgettable album, I think Shut Up and Listen would rank probably right behind those 2 songs for me. I really enjoyed it. It has a pretty catchy hook in the chorus. But other than that, I don't really think there's too much to make note of here that you already haven't mentioned.
I think it is hilarious that the Atreyu feature didn't make it to the album. And that speaks volumes.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Do you have any speculation? Like, do you think it was like, it's not like, yeah. I surprisingly really enjoyed that Atreyu album more than I thought I would, because it all kind of sounded the same, but at least I liked what I was hearing. It was like 2 steps up from the Escape the Fate album, even if it was in like the same vein. I realistically, I think they just wanted to release it as like a single afterwards and have it gain more traction, or maybe they got the feature after the fact. But in my head, it's like Brandon from Atreyu listened to Chemical Warfare and he was like, yeah, don't put this one on the main album, guys. Like, could you just release this afterwards? Like, he didn't want to be associated with the rest of the album. That's my headcanon.
And he still did. He ended up on the tier 3 B-sides.
Shit. Yeah. This is the one I meant.
Yeah, I don't really have too much more to say. I think Shut Up and Listen is just, it was surprisingly, it was like, it went from aggressively okay to aggressively decent for one song.
What a solid progression. So
yeah,
we didn't like these 5 tracks as much. Jake, how about you tell us about 5 new tracks that we did like?
Yeah, it shouldn't be any secret right now at this point, but this next EP we're talking about, Hot Milk. I just want to know what happens when I'm dead.
A slice of the good life. I'm letting go.
I still believe in hot milk supremacy.
The Hot Milk Hype Train.
The Hot Milk Hype Train has departed. If you are, now is the time to, buy your ticket for the next hype train for that next album cycle or EP cycle. I think they actually said they were going to do another EP before an album.
No, why? Stop. Why would you tell me that? I think you just ruined my night.
Damn. Hot Milk Supremacy is real, as far as you ask me. This band can do no wrong. It's crazy. This band is so fucking good. This EP is so fucking good. I want to start with the title track, which is the opener, because that song is arguably still my favorite song off of this EP, which will have to be a little unfortunate, because when I have such high expectations for an EP or just anything that Hot Milk touches, and the lead single is my favorite of all 5 of them. I was left a little disappointed because I was hoping that there would be something to like wow me even more in the vein of like a June Gloom or a Glass Spiders from last year. I didn't entirely get that. In fact, I would go as far as to say the 2 non-singles are the 2 weakest songs on this EP, being Woozy and The Good Wife. The 3 singles they released, I think, are the best 3 songs here. But even still, even saying that I think Woozy and The Good Wife are like my least favorites on this album, or this EP, they're still both really good. Woozy, I really wasn't feeling at first, but the more I've listened to it, the more that it really just catches on. It's a super quick song. It's only 2 minutes and 12 seconds, very fast runtime. And it has a strange structure. It almost feels like it ends like 30 seconds before it should, like it's missing like a chorus or another verse or something. I feel like Woozy would fit better in an album context where there's like 8 or 9 songs instead of just 5 songs, just in the way the song is structured. Like it feels like a very experimental choice to throw into a 5-song EP, especially as the second track. That's the structure they go for in Woozy to me feels like something you would throw in as like one of the last 2 to 3 tracks on an album. Is kind of like an experimental kind of somewhat interlude, but still an actual song type thing. I don't know, like, as I said, I don't think this band can really do any wrong, but I do think it is the weakest track here. In saying that, I said I Just Want to Know What Happens When I'm Dead might be my favorite. There is some very close contention with the closer of this EP, Split Personality.
Yes.
Is that your favorite song from this EP, Derek?
Yes, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I thought I remembered hearing you say that. Split Personality is so fucking good. Holy shit. I'm gonna let you take the wheels on that song for a moment, if you don't mind.
Yeah, this band does, how do I put it? I guess, like, bouncy's not the word, energetic rock well.
Yeah.
Like, it's impressive.
There is an impressive amount of energy that Hannah and Jim are able to express through their music. They're, like, even just watching their music videos, they're just so captivating. Like, they're just so energetic and so just expressive, just in everything that they do. Whether it's like with their voice or with their stage presence or whatever in the music videos, they're so good.
I think that is also maybe my biggest gripe with this EP. I think it's their greatest strength, like objectively and subjectively, their biggest weakness for me, because there is a lot of energy and to a certain extent angst that's like wrapped up in this EP, which is like great. But I feel like I am better served listening to these songs on their own, like in shuffle on a playlist, than having that level of angst and energy present on some level through 5 songs. If that makes sense, like it's entirely a personal thing. But I got in and I got out, and this style of music I prefer on something maybe more in the vein of a Stand Atlantic almost, where in like an album sense, it's like you've got some high energy, but then it mellows it out every couple of songs. It's kind of like a up and down wave type thing. Whereas this, it felt like those dips maybe weren't as deep.
I think Woozy to me feels like it's supposed to be that dip, but it's track 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's too early.
Yeah, it's
too early. And again, I mean, like I have no objective complaints about this EP. I think that Hot Milk has done an excellent job with this EP of convincing me to be a fan, and that they are on a very strong upward trajectory. It's just like at this point, I was upset because they put out or said they were going to put out another EP based on what you're saying. And it's because I want like 10, 11, 12 tracks where it gives them the opportunity to flesh out more of like one cohesive album that I can just sit down and listen to, as opposed to songs that I want to put into a playlist and listen to on their own, but not like revisit the EP as a whole.
The day this band is able to put out their debut album is going to be such a good fucking day.
Glorious. Glorious.
Preemptive lock it into the top 10 albums of whatever year that releases.
Strong contender for sure.
Yeah. I think I didn't really think about this up until now, but I think the biggest weakness of this EP is just the track list ordering. I think all 5 songs are great, but you shuffle up the track list, and I think you put Woozy as track 4. You put you put Woozy as track 4, and you end it with I Think I Hate Myself instead of Split Personality.
Yeah, I could get with that.
Because you're talking about how the split personality is the enemy inside of me, and then you end it with I Think I Hate Myself. Instead of saying I think I hate myself, and then you go about one other thing you hate about yourself. I think the idea of I Think I Hate Myself feels like it has closer energy to me. But like each song on its own is fantastic. The only song we haven't touched on yet is The Good Life, really. I expected more out of that song, especially considering the only 2 non-singles from this EP were Woozy and The Good Life. Hearing Woozy first and being a little underwhelmed just in the strange structure, I was really expecting something to like kind of knock my socks off with The Good Life. And it's still a great song, but it didn't reach the heights that I was kind of hoping it would. I've definitely listened to it a handful of times. I've listened to a lot since, but it doesn't have, I don't know, it's missing something for me. I do like the chorus though, where it's like, do you want a slice of the good life? Whatever one follows it. It's a nice chorus, but I think, as I've said multiple times, the 3 singles for this EP are the standouts here, and they are the clear standouts.
Yeah. I mean, all this nitpicking to say that this is a really good EP, and Hot Milk continues to do nothing but impress, and you should definitely go hear this if you haven't, because this band is inevitably going to get huge.
I just want to double back, actually, to my track list. I actually think that you can make an argument for Split Personality being a perfect closing, just because of the way that the 2 toss their vocal dynamics between each other.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I think it works well as is.
Yeah, it works great as is.
Yeah,
but, if I'm not mistaken, it was one of my most listened to songs in all of September with Split Personality. Aided by the fact that it released the first week of the month.
Right.
But,
yeah. Before
before hell broke loose. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. The Hot Milk Supremacy hype train is well and alive, and I'm going to keep riding into their future releases. That's all I got here.
Absolutely.
Great EP. Let's move on to the brand new EP from The Score named Chrysalis.
So pull the cord, I'm back to life. The switch is tripping in my head. So pull the cord.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Why did you say it like that?
Is that not how you pronounce it?
That's like it's Chrysalis.
It's Chrysalis.
You just said it like it was somebody's name, like Chris Alice, lead singer of Alice in Chains.
Well, fuck me, I guess.
Oh God, Chris Alice.
Isn't
that the magician?
I have no idea. The Score have been one of my favorite bands, just period, since I discovered them in 2016, I think. And this EP, I have mixed thoughts on this.
Okay.
Because the first 3 singles, Victorious, Head Up, and Top of the World, were all very much just Imagine Dragons, but better. And then they leave Pull the Cord and Good to Be Alive as the non-singles, and they are a completely different sound, which is much more of the sound that I actually want to be hearing from them. It is the closest that they have sounded to the EPs they released in 2019 or to the Atlas album from 2017. And I'd say like my favorite songs from them in a while. That album from last year kind of underwhelmed me. I don't really go back to many songs from it other than All of Me. I think Pull the Cord and Good to Be Alive are just some really good stadium rock songs. It fits in with the rest of their early discography. And it's the type of sound that I want to be hearing. I think, especially Pull the Cord has a super bouncy chorus. Mm-hmm. Good to Be Alive, definitely. I think Pull the Cord much more harkens back to the Atlas days, whereas Good to Be Alive I could see fitting on one of those 2019 EPs, where they kind of started changing up their sound a little bit more. But either way, it definitely leans a lot more into like the dirty guitar sound. Leans back into the less like Imagine Dragons radio vocal style. And it just confuses me how the two halves of this EP are so different from each other. I don't know if that was an intentional decision or not, but it really threw me off because I was expecting more kind of Imagine Dragons-esque stuff from Pull the Cord and Good to Be Alive. And I was very well surprised to hear Pull the Cord and Good to Be Alive and hear it harken back to that sound I want to hear from them. But I'm just wondering, like, where the hell did it come from? Because I had no indication they were even going to be doing something like that.
Yeah, it's a very sudden shift in tone. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah. Like, I think, like, I just feel you drop one of those two songs as a single, and it's like, okay, now I have a better idea of what I'm getting from the EP. I'm like a lot more excited for the EP if I hear Good to Be Alive or Pull the Cord as a single, knowing that, like, okay, they're bringing back some of those heavier guitar riffs back. They're doing some more like faster paced vocals. They don't get heavy on the vocals, but like some heavier vocals, more energetic, more powerful vocals, I feel. Check this one off the bingo card in a moment. Pleasantly surprised by this EP.
I think I was as well.
Pleasantly surprised.
Yep.
I have never ever claimed to be a fan of the score. I don't really like any of the score songs enough to like revisit them constantly. Besides maybe like Dreamin', and that's just because it's got a Black Bear feature, so I go back and I'm like, do I like the song? And it's just like, damn, no, not really.
The Black Bear feature's good though.
Yeah, I think well, Black Bear feature's always good. Come on now.
Mhm.
Top of the World and Pull the Cord are really the highlights of this EP for me. Just because it feels like Top of the World is the best Imagine Dragons style song on this album. Like the other two don't do a good job of like authentically making me feel good in the way that whatever that positive alt rock, really Imagine Dragons is supposed to do. But Top of the World, like it feels like it's got a happier vibe almost. Like it does a better job of achieving what it wants to achieve.
Reorder this track list and put Top of the World as the closer.
I would be down for that. Pull the Cord, definitely the best song on this album. Got a bit more energy and punch to it, which I really like. I think Good to Be Alive was too short to be like the closer on a cohesive EP.
And that's why I'm like thinking back to that 2019 EP, because the second EP they dropped that year had a lot of really short songs, like Hunger and what's the other one? Can't Stop Me Now was the other really short one. They had a lot of like barely 2-minute long songs on that EP, and Good to Be Alive feels like honestly Good to Be Alive could be a B-side from that EP and just ended up here. I wouldn't even be mad about that. If that's what it ended up like, if that's how that song ended up coming to fruition on this EP, like I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, if you like alt rock, check this out because it's got it is certainly alt rock.
Yeah.
If you weren't into the score before, I don't really think that anything is going to sell you.
Yep. If you weren't into them before, you won't be into them now.
One of these days, they'll drop something that blows me out of the water. I have faith. I have faith they'll experiment.
To end this discussion off, I do kind of just want to make a note of kind of how the score has fallen from grace for me. Because they were like a lock, is like one of my top 3 favorite bands ever. Back in like Atlas and then those two 2019 EPs. That era of the score was unbelievable for me. Like some of my favorite songs I've ever heard. And not to say they're bad now, I still really enjoy what they're doing, but it isn't the same level. And to a band that I hold to such a high esteem, it does kind of suck to not be talking about them in the light that I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it is what it is. People change. People change their sound. They might want to be leaning towards this new, maybe more radio friendly type of sound for one reason or another. Yeah, I don't really have too much more to add.
Invent Animate have dropped a new 3-song EP called The Sun Sleeps As If It Never Was. This
is metalcore.
It is certainly metalcore. It is also very Invent Animate. In the same way that the score dropped an EP where if you liked the score before, you'll probably like it now. And if you didn't like the score before, you probably won't like that new The Score EP. Same sort of thing here. This is quintessential Invent Animate. It's got the big atmosphere with the dark undertones and lots of yelling and proggy guitar. But as somebody who likes Invent Animate more than not, I actually thought that this was really, really good.
Yeah, I think I don't even remember what the album last year. Yeah, last year was called.
Yeah, it was Dark something, wasn't it? Greyview. Yeah, so close.
You were on the right track.
But this EP is a vibe.
Yep.
I could just sit back and literally chill. It sounds really weird because it's like super
Right.
It's heavy and
As not a fan of this band, I would disagree, but my opinion also doesn't really matter much here.
I see exactly what you're saying, and I think it's because they do such a great job of making these 3 tracks flow together, and it's also more or less like 2 1/4 tracks.
And it's also 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's the impressive thing for me, and it makes sense because the track listing spells out the EP title, but that it all flows as well as it does. Like, to me, putting this on feels like kind of like how Periphery dropped that like 21-minute long song, right, or whatever. It was like Reptile, I think it was called, or something like that. This feels the same to me in that this doesn't feel like 3 individual songs. This actually feels like a cohesive EP, maybe in the same vein as like a Bloom by Of Mice and Men. Like that same sort of all these tracks transition into one another. It makes it really replayable and enjoyable.
Yeah.
Not that it's as good as Bloom by Of Mice and Men. But no, it's Invent Animate doing what they do best. But if, like for me, Greyview, I enjoy those songs on an individual level, but listening to that much like dark atmosphere and proggy guitars at once is like a lot for me to digest and go back and listen to that album regularly. Whereas with this, it's like it is quick in and out, 10 minutes, like you said, and it's a lot easier to just put on and vibe.
I think that's actually why I enjoy it more than like other prog metal. Like I'd say I didn't really enjoy the Born of Osiris album or something like that. But this is just 10 minutes in and out. You're done.
And there's nothing revolutionary going on here. Like, it's not like, oh, you need to hear this breakdown or this vocal break was just huge. But all of it's, really enjoyable. It's probably one of the better great EPs I've heard all year, if that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't call this phenomenal or, like, fantastic by any means, but it's definitely great. And in terms of all the great EPs I've heard this year, this is definitely up there. So if you did like Greyview, check this out. If you didn't like Greyview, I would also recommend checking this out because it's shorter and a lot more digestible than Greyview as a whole was.
Yes.
I think that brings us to our albums, fellas. That's all the EPs we got for September.
Yeah, that was 5 EPs we just went through, and we have 10 albums, I think?
No way. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9, okay. 9 albums. Let's fucking get into it then. Starting with Landless, who have dropped their debut album, Mirrors.
I am drowning in my own mind. I guess there's something wrong. So now
Debut. You gotta emphasize that. This is a debut album. This is a debut album.
This is an impressive debut album.
Very impressive debut album.
An impressive debut album. I'll say it again.
Yes.
Tell them. Tell the people.
It's an impressive debut album.
All right, wait.
I remember when we talked about Revive, the last single prior to this album, last month in our August recap. And I was saying, like, this band is going to drop one of the most underrated, slept-on albums in the entirety of the year. And now having heard all 9 songs on this album, that is so fucking true. I can already tell this band is not gonna get the recognition they deserve for how good this album is.
I think it also has to do with when they released it.
Kinda.
For me, at least, I'd say. I don't think I'm paying as much attention to this as I want to because of other stuff that has
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't commit the cardinal sin of releasing on National Spiritbox Day.
True.
They were a week early, so I mean,
We had a week.
you had a week.
That week? Did I use that week?
Evidently not.
It really was very unfortunate that like that week before that dropped, I was just really, really busy. Like I agree wholeheartedly. I really enjoyed this, but I haven't given it its due time yet, just because of the sheer volume of everything else. But I would go so far as to say that this is probably in my top 5 post-hardcore albums that have dropped all year, if you could call it that. I would consider this post-hardcore.
Metalcore.
It like balances between post-hardcore and metalcore at times.
Let's see, do they have an official Spotify bio? Nope, they're talking about sincerity, raw emotions, and intimacy. Tell me if you think you're metalcore. No.
I think they were metalcore in the past.
Alright, hold on. Names like Amir, Kingdom of Giants, Betraying the Martyrs, Our Last Night, or Landmarks are just a few names in the pile they've had to honor with over the... Okay, yeah. So if we're going off of bands that they are like or fans also like, yeah, it's metalcore. Okay, my bad. Then this is like a top 10 metalcore album I've heard all year. I cannot understate, or I guess I could understand. I don't fucking know. This is so impressive that this is a debut album that I feel like if they continue to put out albums and I found them retroactively and I went on like a deep Discog dive, I would be so phenomenally impressed that this was the first effort that they put out. Like this is maybe not as much in terms of like, what I'm trying to say is that it's polished. And it's not necessarily in the sense of like, oh, there are these incredible production touches and like I could hear every frequency really clearly and the mixing is on point and all that. But like most bands on their debut album don't get a sound that is this maybe like it sounds refined and practiced and cohesive. It's like bands are on their debut are maybe usually struggling to find their sound if they don't have a lot of prior material. Whereas with this, it feels like they've already nailed their sound and they give you 9 tracks that exhibit just how good they are at what they're doing.
Yeah, I think 9 tracks is like the perfect length too. I don't know like how much longer you could make this album and keep it like
10 tracks.
I mean, yeah, you could
I want a 10th track.
Yeah,
tracks.
you could get a 10th track probably. But I think like 9 tracks is a perfect length for this, especially as a debut for like how small they are. They don't need to be like blowing me away, but they are like it's still very impressive what they are able to do considering like the small scale they're operating from. This is a metalcore band out of Slovakia. Who the hell else exists in Slovakia? I mean, I'm sure there's other bands. I'm sure there's other bands that exist in Slovakia, but it's like it's not what you think of when you think of like major like European hardcore, metalcore, hard rock bands. You don't think of Slovakia. And here comes
you as a Slovakian metalcore enthusiast. I am honestly very upset by what you're saying right now.
Well, what I'm saying is like this band is like they're not coming from like a well-known area that's known for producing stuff this good. And they are producing stuff that is really good. I want to take some time to start appreciating some specific tracks on here. I think the singles generally are the best songs on this album. With Borrowed Time, Nobody, and Revive. I also want to give a nod to Fantasy being my favorite of the non-singles. I do think that they're... How do I want to phrase this? I think it's interesting how they incorporated the harsher elements, where I feel like Revive was the first time that we really got to hear them emphasize the harsh vocals. Borrowed Time, Nobody, and Waves didn't really have any harsh vocals. I feel like they were saving them all for the album, which kind of threw me off. I wasn't expecting nearly as many harsh vocals as we ended up getting. Not to say that I didn't like them, but they definitely caught me off guard. and I would go as far as to say they caught me off guard in a good way. Because they still sound great. The harsh vocals come in at the perfect time, and they do their job. I don't know. This album just overall, really, really solid.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, you mentioned your favorite individual song. Mine is the one that has the least amount of plays on the album, and it's Drowning. I think Drowning in a Borrowed Time is a really nice 1-2 punch that I just really, really enjoyed.
I do have a lyric. I do have a lyric that I want to say, actually. From Nobody. I mentioned this when we first talked about Landless, because Nobody was the lead single for this album way back earlier this year. But the chorus of that song, where it says, "We know we're not perfect, we strive to prove we're worth it. We know we're not perfect, this is who we are." Such a simple chorus, but it's so good. I think that's part of what makes this album so good, is that they nail the chorus on just about every song here. Like, I think of Falling Apart. It has a strange chorus, but it's a huge chorus. Borrowed Time, Revive, Nobody, all have huge choruses. Fantasy as well. I think the chorus songwriting is really impressive.
I wanted
Jacob,
to make
Justin,
a
what are your thoughts?
comparison. I want to
Hit me
make a
with it.
comparison to an album that I just thought of now, and it actually is because the artwork that made me think of it is Noya's Colorblind.
Yeah, I can see that.
I listened to that album earlier this year, and I only remember, like, maybe one song
Wow.
from it.
Yeah, you're right.
And that makes me want to, like, oh, I can't wait for what this band's doing in the future, because I see, like, I actually see similarities between this band and Noya, and as you guys know, Noya was me and Justin's number one last
You
year,
know
so so
Well,
I'm
I don't-
excited to.
Well, I don't think this album is gonna place as high as Noya did last year.
No, I'm comparing it to Noya's debut, so I'm expecting another good one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
this sophomore album is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
no idea with their impact how that's gonna work, but I enjoyed it. It's been a while since I went back to it, so like I don't remember a
Yeah.
whole lot of the new stuff.
Yeah, I spent a lot of the first week that it was out with this album. But then September 17th happened,
Yeah.
so unlucky. Yeah, I don't really have too much more to add. I think really I just wanted to hit home the fact that this band is hella underrated and they deserve a lot more attention. And
Yes.
like I know our audience isn't the biggest, but this is one of those bands that I really believe deserves a bigger audience than what they have. Out of like all the smaller hidden gems that we've talked about, Landless are definitely one of the best.
We have the new album from Solence called
Oh,
Deafening.
you said it.
Oh, no!
Oh, how is that?
Don't worry, guys. I removed Solence from the bingo card.
Thank God. This will wrap up an era until Solence puts out any single good song ever again.
Wait,
This is the last you'll be hearing.
when was the last time we mentioned Solence in a podcast?
I think like 2 months ago.
Yeah, they released Vampire in August, and we didn't talk about that. They
Thank
released
God.
some song in July, and that song sucked ass, so we didn't talk about it.
Was it Thunder?
It might have been Thunder. It might have been Thunder the last time we talked about them.
Which was when?
May?
Wow,
What a refreshing break.
we did good,
We did good.
but we ruined it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so
We
full
could have ruined it
disclosure-
last month with Vampire,
We
but I left it
actually-
out.
We divided this podcast or this episode into 2 parts just so half of it wouldn't have Solence.
Exactly. It was a strategic play. So I made the decision to not listen to this.
Me as well.
Justin.
I think I encouraged you guys not to listen to it.
Yeah, there was no positive reinforcement to go listen to this.
And I will take
Even
full
from a
blame for
Solence
that.
apologist.
I gave it a chance and got right to Push Me to the Edge, and I stopped hard.
Were you
All
pushed to
right.
the edge?
That's a
All right,
good
Jake,
time.
it's up to you to tell us how good this album was.
All right, so I'll start by saying that generally, I still think a lot of the lead singles for this album are decent. I think Indestructible, Good Fucking Music, Deafening, and Thunder are all pretty good songs. And then there's 6 other songs. I mean, I guess Vampire is alright. I guess Keep Up With Us actually surprised me on my first listen because I had a surprisingly heavy breakdown, but I went back to it like twice after that. There is an abomination on this album, and it's called Push Me to the Edge.
You know, I'm gonna listen to this song right now.
Oh my god, that song sucks. Jacob, we're gonna get a live reaction. We're like, it's the reaction era of like
Listening
metal.
to this, because you said it was terrible. Yeah, I'm not subjecting myself to that first minute again. Hell no, absolutely not. It is sickening that you would even suggest that I do such a thing. I am appalled.
I can't tell you anything about Push Me to the Edge other than the fact that that song sucks ass.
That's terrible.
I hate to just like trash on a band like this on our podcast.
Well, look,
But like the thing is,
you gotta
Solence
put
was
a
good at
cap
one
on
point.
the era.
Yeah, we
It's-
have to put a cap on the era of talking about Solence.
And just I think the thing that's frustrating for me, and again, this is speaking as somebody who's only heard the singles and not listened to the full album and has not had any good recommendations for the album. But I am so upset because I know that this band is capable of so much better, and it feels like in the same way that it's like, oh, this heavy metalcore band sold out and makes like uninspired octane fuel, verse, breakdown, chorus, whatever. Like, I feel like this is the same thing, where I know Solence can make music that I enjoy, and it feels like they've sold out and made stuff that sounds more uninspired and generic and anthemic, and there's no real soul to it, you know? It's not, it's more so that I am disappointed in the band than I just don't like the music. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't like the music, but
Disappointment's
I
a
feel
good
like-
word for it.
yeah, it's amplified by the fact that I know this band can do better, and I'm just kind of like, like why? I just wish they'd put out something that I could thoroughly sit down and enjoy as much as I did that debut album.
As I said, I think there are some good songs here. It's the lead singles we talked about earlier this year. Indestructible, Deafening, Good Fucking Music. I think those 3 songs in particular are still like solid songs. When I listened to this album for the first time, I enjoyed re-listening to those songs. I will probably go back to those songs. Like, if they show up in my shuffle, I'm not complaining. But everything else just dampens like how good those 3 songs are so much that it's just disappointing. It's just disappointing. And I just want to reiterate that we're doing this out of the fact that a lot of us, I think at least myself, Justin, and Derek, I don't know, Jacob, if you listened to their debut album at all or any songs from
I've
it.
not.
But the 3 of us all really liked a lot of that debut album. And it just hasn't been the same since. And it sucks. And it's disappointing, to reiterate. So,
I'm listening to the breakdown.
you got to it, huh?
Wait, there's a breakdown in this song. I never got past the first minute. Jacob, timestamp, go.
It's like 2:30.
All right, this better be the best thing I've ever heard.
It won't be.
All right, I'm at 2:30.
Moment of truth.
Yeah. Fuck this band. Well, maybe one day they'll put out something I
Dude,
can enjoy.
Every time he says "push me to the edge," I think about. I want him to say, "All my friends are dead."
Now, fellas, we
An
just
end to an
harped-
era.
Yeah, a moment of silence for moment of Solence for silence. Because we are about to follow the worst album of the month, bar none, to what I would say is my favorite album of the month,
Bar none.
The debut, well, maybe not bar none, but the debut album from Spiritbox, Eternal Blue.
They were born of dust, shallow parasites, breakdown, destruction.
Guys, this is a debut album.
Say it again for those in the back.
This is a
Guys.
debut Guys, can you hear me?
Check. 1 2 1 2.
Mic check.
So I don't consider this a debut in the same way that I consider like Landless a debut.
Yeah.
Because Courtney's been around and like I wrestled a bear once, and like they have the 2017 EP, a lot of singles, but this is still
A debut.
a
album.
debut album. And holy fuck, what a debut album this is.
I want to
This-
preface this discussion with the fact that the next 3 albums and this all dropped on the same night. 4 albums. Myself, Derek, and Jacob, the 3 of us stayed up till what, like 3 a.m. listening to
Something
the 4
like that.
albums back to back to back to back. That night was fucking awesome.
True.
Yeah.
That night was incredible. One of the most memorable nights where we have gotten together to listen to an album at midnight, to just experience it together on our first listen. We don't do it for every album, but September the 17th was a special day, and I'm glad that we got to do that.
It had to be done.
It had to
I
be
mean,
done.
look,
It's undeniable.
This album cycle, after their signing with Rise, brought them from when before they signed with Rise and they just released Holy Roller. I remember because I was like, this band's gonna be so big. They were at 240,000 monthly listeners. Come this album cycle, and being 3 weeks removed from that debut release, they are at 855,000 monthly listeners.
Jeez.
That is what, over 3 times the amount, almost 4 times the amount of monthly listeners that they had before. And it is so incredibly deserved because the range and pure talent demonstrated by all members of the band over the course of 12 tracks is just beautiful. I mean, Sunkiller, perfect opening. And the fact that
Before we gotta talk about Sunkiller before you move on from Sunkiller.
Oh yeah. No, go for it. Tell me about
Sunkiller.
Sunkiller.
Sing me this week.
Okay.
I think all 3 of us are waiting for somebody else to pick up the
Yeah.
next one, but nobody wanted to be the one who ended up yelling it in the end, so we all just kind of fell off. Tell me I'm wrong.
I can't.
So this is I wouldn't say my favorite album opener, but it is very high.
Favorite album
album
opener, period, or of this year?
I will not say.
Okay.
But
Thinking.
this whole song is just building. The entire it's all set up so well, and it keeps you on your toes, and you're anticipating the entire song. Like I remember the first time I heard this, I was like, "This is my favorite Spiritbox song. This is my favorite Spiritbox song."
It is
that.
my most listened to song that isn't one of the singles, and it's not particularly close.
And it is my favorite Spiritbox song. It's so good. It's just
There is something
song.
special about the way that it builds and then
Yeah.
just collapses with energy at the end.
Yep.
So good. I feel like for as many amazing albums we've heard this year, I feel like there has been a bit of a drought in like epic opening songs to albums this
Mhm.
year, and Sunkiller is filling that void in my heart.
Yeah.
Of like an atmospheric opening to build up hype and anticipation, and then just collapse with energy. And boy, does this song collapse with energy.
Every good opener, I feel like, should have that buildup of energy. And we've discussed that it does do that. Check. I feel like every good opener should also transition into track 2.
Check.
And not only does this opener transition into track 2, which is Hurt You then transitions as well into track 3. And I'm just sitting there with like my mouth is open a little bit, and I'm like, holy shit. And then we Yellow Jacket.
Those first 3 tracks blew my fucking mind the way they
Beautiful.
transitioned into each
Beautiful.
other.
I will say I've sat down and listened to this album front to back a bunch, but if there's any like sequence of songs that I've listened to the most, it's just putting these first 3 songs in queue and listening to them transition to one to another.
100% agree.
Hurt You is my second favorite single, but I low-key wish they didn't release it as a single just so I could have that streak of 3 in my playlist together.
Yeah, I agree. I did that. I ended up removing the singles from my playlist and just throwing the whole album in as is, just so I can listen to it in my playlist.
I respect it.
I think the moment that I really, because like Sunkiller, Hurt You I'd already heard, and Sunkiller I was just floored by. I think the moment that sold me on this album, that I knew this was going to live up to the hype, was that first opening verse in Yellow Jacket into the like that. Oh, I just kind of sat there and let it take over me. Like I think Yellow Jacket.
Featuring Sam Carter, by the way.
Yeah, of Architects, because like why just let it be one of the best modern metalcore bands when you could have a feature from one of the best modern metalcore vocalists? Like it's such a fantastic choice. And Sam Carter nails it. It's not like topically that feature for Courtney on Vanish Canvas where she's just kind of there in one part of the song. Sam Carter feels like an integral part of this song. And it's just,
I
it's,
think
it's
we
perfect.
discussed that with the We Came as Roman single.
Yeah.
As well.
Just, I am so beyond happy with these first 3 songs, which do a great job of hitting you with more heavy than melodic, right? And then you get the 2-track punch of The Summit and Secret Garden, which are maybe a bit more vibey, I guess, than the first
Melodic.
3. Right. And Courtney says, hey, I can do cleans too, guys. Check this shit out.
You know what I
It's
think of when I hear
fantastic.
those first 2 songs? I think of like a blanket in the wind, or like sheets just flowing in the wind.
Yeah.
That's like the kind of airy energy that I get from The Summit and Secret Garden. And then they just jump into Silk and the Strings and Holy Roller. Because why the fuck not?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we did cleans for 2 songs. Let's not do that anymore, guys. And Silk and the Strings, probably I would say
Those
the heaviest
riffs.
song on the album.
Those fucking riffs.
Oh yeah. This just in the same way that they were like, hey, check how good our cleans are. It's like, oh, you forgot how good our uncleans are, didn't you?
No. You
And
can't,
we
you
were
can't be
like,
going
no, we didn't
no.
forget. And they were like, too bad, here's 2 more. Just to remind you that
It's like
Courtney is one of the best vocalists in the scene.
you get the Secret Garden and you're like two like Queen songs in a row, and they're just like reminding you like, hey, I know it was like maybe 8 minutes ago. I know that people have short attention spans these days, but just so you don't forget, we can do heavy too. Here's Silk and the Strings.
Yeah. And after those 2 is Eternal Blue, the title track, which is personally my favorite song off the album. And if not for the delivery and the way that I keep listening to that first verse into in Yellow Jacket, I think What's Left of Me, a cavity, at least this space is mine, in the chorus for Eternal Blue is probably my favorite delivery on this album. I mean, I wasn't super high on it when we heard it on release night, and I went back after it, and it is my most played song off this album. Just perfect. Courtney's voice, as powerful as it is, does a fantastic job of being light and airy when it wants to, particularly in this chorus and the chorus of The Summit, and even Secret Garden to an extent. Which is then on display again, and We Live in a Strange World, which I compare to, what is it? I think it's Silk and Satin off that Stand Atlantic album.
That's actually a really good comparison.
That it's very, like, experimental. You've got the, like, I think it's hi-hats or 808s or whatever in the background that is more like synthetic drum beats. And
Also, coincidentally,
sort of
between
thing.
those 2 songs, they're both my least favorite songs from their respective albums.
Okay, that's fair. And we get to Halcyon, which is like, I feel like it maybe almost the most forgettable track on the album, and not in the sense that it's bad. It's just like, it feels like that style for it was done. It has aspects from the rest of the album in it, but it doesn't present anything new in a way that I feel like the previous 9 tracks did.
I'm kind of glad we feel the same about that.
Yeah.
Because
and
I was scared. I was scared that I was going to come out and say that, like, Halcyon is a track that, like, I want to like so much more because it has all of the good elements that every other song does. It's just not nearly as memorable, and I don't know why. I mean, actually, no, I do know why. It's that every other song is some other fucking incredible moment. And Halcyon is, like, just textbook essential Spiritbox, I feel like. It lacks some... it just pales in comparison to how good everything else is. When on, like, so many other albums, Halcyon would probably be, like, a top 3, top 4 song.
Yeah, I think by virtue, it's just by virtue of where it is placed on this album. Because I think that
I agree.
It's very similar to Hurt You. I think, you know, besides the fact that Sunkiller, Hurt You, and Yellow Jacket all transition into one another, if you swapped Halcyon and Hurt You, I think that we'd be saying the same thing about Hurt You, just by virtue of where it is in track listing and the elements that it has.
We probably wouldn't because it was released as a single.
Well, right. Okay. Whatever. Ignore me. But
I get your point, yeah.
And again, it's the same thing as you said, that everything else is so good. It's like Halcyon for me is like a 9 out of 10 song, and everything else is like higher. So like, what am I supposed to do? And then of course you end with 2 singles, which normally I would be upset about.
Cut down the altar.
Yes, sir. Circle. I would normally be very upset that I'd heard 2 singles as the final 2 songs off an album. But when they're as good as Circle With Me and Constance, and especially Constance working as well as a closer as it does.
Derek, you said Silk in the Strings was the heaviest song. You forgot about Constance.
Yeah, my bad.
Yo, those guitar riffs in Constance, though.
Now, I'm talking about lyrics.
We mentioned it night of, Jacob, but I do think that they changed the mix on Constance and Secret Garden.
I went back and listened to the music video, and I don't think they did. I think I just like Constance more for some reason.
See, so it's interesting that you say that, because I went back and listened to it, and I don't know if it was just the like power of suggestion that I wanted to hear something different, but I think that Courtney's vocals were more pronounced in the mix on Secret Garden and Constance on the album. So it's interesting, but
yeah, I thought that as well. But then when I went back and listened, I was like, this doesn't sound very different. So
So I have something that I want to say, and before I say it, and it'll work with one another, so bear with me here. Besides Courtney being just fucking phenomenal, you know, it is what it is. It's a given. The instrumentation on this album is fantastic, and the way that they can make guitar tones sound like bass, and the way that they can make it flow, I think especially the guitar work on Secret Garden is just kind of like, yeah, okay. You're just flexing on everybody, like especially in the second verse. The way that
I would almost say that, but for Silk and the Strings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the instrumentation here does an excellent job of accompanying Courtney's voice to like accentuate it, I guess would be a way of putting it. Like it works so well together. I think that with that said, my least favorite instrumentation and also my least favorite song on the album come on Holy Roller, which, as a song that was effectively Spiritbox's breakout song that got the most attention, feels almost sacrilegious to say.
Yeah, but I got the same vibe. Because honestly, Holy Roller is like, I would put it bottom 4, bottom 3. Somewhere in that range.
Here's my issue, is that every other song on this album has something about it that, besides maybe Halcyon, that is memorable. And is maybe not experimental, but it works in the sense that it's like, oh, I haven't heard something like this in a while. Whereas with Holy Roller, it's one-noted vocals almost pretty much like the whole way through, and it's nothing in the same way that Halcyon isn't anything that we haven't heard previously on the album. Nothing that Courtney really does on Holy Roller is something that I didn't already hear directly prior in Silk and the Strings. So I feel like while the placement of it, based on what I've heard with the rest of the album, is the placement of it on the album is perfect, it almost feels like it's done a disservice by Silk in the Strings, because it feels like that's the superior heavy song, and Holy Roller is just kind of bland in comparison. Like, I almost wish they would have put the version with the Rio feature on here, because that would have given it some sort of life and differential to everything else that would make it give it that pop standout moment.
But I feel like
a lot of the rest of the
Holy
songs
Roller
have.
is their breakout song,
Right,
and
right.
the Rio feature is the less popular version. So
And
I feel
also
like
think
from
the
a
real version is
marketing,
worse.
from like
Okay,
a
yeah,
marketing
fair.
perspective, people are going to be disappointed to hear the Rio feature more often than not. I would have to assume,
I
unfortunately.
suppose so. I see what
So-
you're saying. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm nitpicking. the
Yeah,
fucking,
very small nitpicking
fantastic
going
song.
on here.
God, I mean, just the way that everything is placed on this album too, I feel like works so well. This is just such a fucking fantastic album. I am both excited to see what the follow-up is to this, because, like, how the fuck do you follow this up?
Yep.
But at the same time, I'm concerned
Yeah. Yeah.
this
How the
is
fuck do you
almost
follow this
too
up?
good.
Yeah.
Like, how do you debut with an album this good? How do you possibly follow this up with something that fans would consider better? And by all means, go for it. If they pull it off, it's like album of the forever. But
If they pull it
You
off,
know?
are we talking like fucking like sempiternal classic type shit?
I think that this album is already going to be a classic. I'm not going
Okay.
to lie to you. It's got way too much impact. Yeah. And it's not like you can say, oh, Spiritbox is going to go poppy, not the artist, but like in a pop-driven manner, because they've got songs like Secret Garden on here that have kind of pop-style choruses and lean more into that poppiness, and they've already got songs like Hurt You and Circle With Me that feel like they fit more on like rock radio type thing on Octane, and they've succeeded on Octane. And so it's like you can't say that this band is going to sell out and do a different sound, because it feels like they've explored all reaches possible of their sound on this album. So like how do you move on from that? But and at the same time,
Coming next,
that's what makes this a
Spiritbox
fantastic
does
album.
Stadium Rock.
Dude, look, Spiritbox are going to enter their emo rap era, and I'm here for it.
What I'm thinking is like, I don't know, collab with like Ollie Sykes.
Oh, dude, what if the new Bring Me EP has a Courtney feature on it? Oh,
I
I'd
don't think
lose
so,
it.
but-
It'd be, dude.
That
Ollie
sounds like
Sykes,
a bit of a
if you're
stretch.
listening, reach out to Courtney. Oh, outside of what I've said, I have no faults with this album. None. Not one.
So I'm gonna take that as my opportunity to transition to my two faults that I have with this
Okay.
album.
Hit me with it.
The first one is more so specific to a specific song or two, with The Summit and Eternal Blue, the title track.
Oh no.
I feel like sometimes
do
the instrumentation masks the vocals, and I can't exactly hear what Courtney is saying sometimes because her vocals are so airy. Particularly in Eternal Blue. I think that's more so an issue there than The Summit.
That's fair.
And I don't know how you fix that, because you either change the vocals, which are fantastic and don't need changing, or you change the instrumentation, which is fantastic and doesn't need changing, but together they don't mesh in the way that I hoped they would. That's like the only kind of stylistic choice that has not clicked with me on this album yet. The only other fault that I really have here is that I think there is a weak stretch of songs from Eternal Blue to We Live in a Strange World to Halcyon. I think, like...
Pain. Pain.
I think everything, like, the opening to this album was just too fucking good that by the time I get to Eternal Blue, I
You know what? I'm
Like-
gonna agree with you, Jake.
Jacob,
I'm
tell
gonna
him.
agree with you.
like it's
Wait,
like
no,
I
you
get
Did you say you are going to agree with him?
I'm gonna agree with him.
No!
Derek and Shambles.
In my
The-
head, I heard that he wasn't going to agree with him, and I think I was just hearing what I wanted to hear. I'm so excited to hype him up.
No, that's why I
I
wasn't sure what
that. Mic.
that's why I kind of like questioned you because I'm like, wait, did you say that you're agreeing with me or not? Like I didn't fully understand it first. But no, I just think that the first 6 track, what is it? 6, 7? 7. The first 7 tracks are so incredible, including Holy Roller, that it's like, I don't know, man. How much more can I ask out of Spiritbox when they've already given me something so good? Like, I'm like, Eternal Blue and Halcyon are incredible songs. We Live in a Strange World, I think, is the weakest song here, and there really isn't too much competition. But it's just the stretch of those 3 songs has left me underwhelmed going back to it.
I'm gonna mute my mic and cry.
I'm sorry.
I'm having a
sorry.
visceral reaction to what you're saying, which I guess is a testament to how much I love.
I will
the
say,
songs
on
and
first
songs,
listen,
but-
Eternal Blue and Halcyon were fucking incredible. It's just that everything else is
Oh, no,
also
they
fucking
fell off.
incredible.
Oh,
Everything else
God.
is so incredible that I did not spend enough time with them, and they did not have enough memorable moments to make me go back to them compared to The Summit or a Sun Killer or a Silk in the Strings, unfortunately. With that being said, this is still like 99% guarantee a lock for my top 10 albums of the year. So who mad? Not me.
Yep.
3
I wouldn't-
underwhelming
um,
Spiritbox songs are still like 8 out of 10s at best.
I don't know. It's kind of up in the air for me, guys. I don't know if it'll crack my top 10. We'll have to see. That Solence album was really promising. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is there
What should
any
be, like,
final
Justin's
thoughts?
Number 1.
Yeah, Justin, how much did you like this new Spiritbox album? He's gone.
Justin
He
doesn't
left.
want to talk.
He's left us. He's left us.
Justin's not having a good day, so we're
Yeah.
gonna let him
Yeah.
rest.
Well, I
his
don't even
voice.
think he heard it anyway. Poor guy is not a Spiritbox fan, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I listened to
He
it actually.
lives.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, again, with so many so much shit that released, I couldn't go back to after maybe first or second listen. But there's nothing for me to add. You guys pretty much said anything I was gonna say.
Do you have a favorite song?
Let me take a look at the track list one more time. I believe
Eternal Blue. Eternal Blue.
Eternal Blue is up there. I'd say it's top 3.
No. Finally.
I would say probably Hurt You or Constant.
Okay,
Also
respectable
some good
picks.
choices.
Actually, I think I'm the only one that hasn't mentioned my favorite track here. Because, Jacob, yours is Sun Killer. We got Eternal
Yep.
Blue, and then one of Hurt You or Constance for Justin. My favorite track is still Circle With Me. That pre-breakdown line of cut down the altar into the riff, into literally the entire fucking song, is so fucking good. Circle With Me was the moment when I realized that Spiritbox was fucking sick. Holy Roller didn't do it for me at first. Constance was good, but was I'm like, alright, yeah, Spiritbox is a pretty cool band. Sure, fine. Circle With Me drops, and suddenly Spiritbox is like, oh shit, this band is fucking good, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite songs of the year. One of my favorite metalcore songs of the year. The chorus is incredible. I love all of the kind of imagery related to cut down the altar and vultures and birds and all that kind of stuff. It's a beautiful song. I love Circle With Me. But with that, I think we've spent enough time on this Spiritbox discussion. We've been at it for a while. So, any last thoughts? Jacob, you got anything?
Negative.
Alrighty then. This album's incredible. I'm sure this isn't the last time we're going to be bringing it up this year.
Yeah.
If this conversation is anything to go off of. Let's move on then to album number 2 from the... Oh god, do I say it? Oh fuck. I'm gonna say it. The trifecta of the 4 elements. The trifecta of the 4 albums of September the 17th. Concrete Castles have also released their debut album, Wish I Missed You.
Put your heart back on your sleeve and now. Bleeding out, lose my control alone.
I'm going to
Well-
start out this discussion by saying that I should have seen this band live in Boston on October 5th. I had a ticket, but I wasn't able to go, and I'm really upset. That's all. I should have seen this band live because I really wanted to see this band live, and Against the Current. If you missed our July recap, Against the Current's new EP, Fucks, and they were on tour together, and I really wanted to go to that show, and things just didn't work out, and I couldn't go, and I'm mad. I was also low-key hoping that I could get to meet the guys from Concrete Castles and Audra and I forget what the other names of their guitar and drummer are. But I was checking their Instagram story one day, and someone posted my Good Shit My Deep playlist and said, whoever's playlist this is, I'm obsessed. And I just wanted to introduce myself to the band as, hey, that's my playlist, because I think that'd be really funny.
Yeah.
So next time Concrete Castles comes to Connecticut or Boston, I'm making a point to make that happen. I'm making it a point. I'm going to, it will happen eventually. But to start discussing this album, behind Spiritbox, I'm gonna say this is my second favorite album of the month. It's tough for you, I know.
I am going to echo that sentiment.
Okay, hell yeah.
I
This
was
yeah.
AFK and I do not know what you said, but I will also echo something that you said.
So Concrete Castles is your second favorite album of the month. Hell yeah.
Oh, no. I will not echo that. Sorry. Can I just want to, I have a quick thing about this album. I only listened to the one time. And I will say I actually did save a song from this album, and it is the title track.
That song is so much of a whole ass vibe. I remember I said that exact same thing when we talked about Wish I Missed You last month when it dropped as a single. That title track is such a fucking vibe. It is so bouncy, it is so groovy. I think that song is stuck in my head more than any other song on this album. And it's
Yes.
I wouldn't even say it's my favorite song here, but it got stuck in my head the more that I listened to it. It's so good.
My girlfriend saved this song too, so it's a good.
Does.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have a lot to say about individual songs here. I just think generally this album has like practically no flaws. This is pop rock at its finest.
Wait, there is one flaw. The day it was released.
Oh, true. You have a point. But like, other than just an unfortunate release date, I really have nothing bad to say about this album. Every song here is fantastic. Like, I mean, as I said, I don't really have a lot to say about individual songs, but I feel like just about anyone can enjoy this album. It is super accessible.
Yeah.
And everyone is going to find at least one song that they like about it. Whether it's Wish I Missed You, which is just very much a vibe, or maybe like a Half Awake or a Porcelain, which gets a little bit heavier, or maybe it's something like a Suburbia or Atmosphere, which leans more into like a pop direction. I feel like there's something for everyone here, unless you're like a diehard metalcore fan only, and only metalcore. Because you're not getting any types
Calling
of
me out? Like I said, I like the song. Like,
well, no, I'm not calling you out because like I know you listen to other stuff, but I know there are people out there that listen to metalcore and only metalcore.
At Alan Harrington on Twitter. No, yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you have it in a moment, Derek.
Yeah, I got you.
I really don't have anything bad to say about this album. It is fantastic from top to bottom. I don't think that it has the same heights as other albums I've heard this year, but the floor of this album is unbelievably high.
So, you said you didn't have much to say about individual songs. I want to put like 3 stars, and like I want to take a highlighter, put it over, and like I want to give a fucking gold medal to Porcelain.
Saw
Because
that one
that,
coming.
ever since it came out, has been like a top 5 song of the year for me, and that has not fallen off at all.
That is like I would definitely. I think I actually think that's my favorite song on this album. I think
For
Porcelain's
me,
my favorite.
It's
It's
like
so
it's
hard, though.
between that, Wish I Missed You, and maybe either Hidden Faces or Just a Friend. Which is the fucking 4 songs that open this album. So, you know,
You saying it's front heavy?
Yes, actually. You
Yes,
know what?
but
I'm
also
gonna go ahead
no.
and say that. No, I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, darn.
I think that Holding On is the only song through Suburbia that I'm not entirely sold on. The other 2 on this album being Thrill and Say It. And for me,
Man.
because I know. You
Man.
know what? You were talking bad about Eternal Blue, so it's my turn. No, how do I put this? I think that before I give my criticism of those songs, I want to say, first and foremost, that even having heard that Against the Current EP, this is my favorite example of a band doing pop rock in a long time, maybe ever.
All right, you've crossed a line there, my friend.
I know. And
You've crossed
I
a
think
line.
it really is among the, Fame on Fire, the Our Last Night. This is the best example of a band taking the pop sensibility that they gain from making covers and putting it into practice in such a fantastic, I think that inherently their style that they are going for here, this style of pop rock and how it's executed and the production notes throughout the album, it's flawless. I think that my issue with the Thrill and Say It is that they're almost too pop driven. I think that when you're making, and this I don't think maybe is something objectively as it is subjectively for me, that when I hear pop rock, I feel like there is a fine line into how much you balance the pop and the rock. And sometimes if you cross too far into the pop zone, and this is coming from somebody who really likes pop music and like follows Billboard charts and shit like that. But it was almost some of the elements in Thrill and Say It, kind of like with that anthemic chant in the background, was a little too like pop anthem for me.
You can't come after my anthemic chants like that.
I'm coming after your anthemic chants.
Bro.
I'm hunting them with a vengeance. It's open season on the anthemic chants right now.
Oh no.
You didn't have to say it like that.
But I mean, yeah, and that's like it was the same sort of thing that we were talking about with Spiritbox, where it's like, Holy Roller and Halcyon, maybe not as high on. There's still like 8, 9 out of 10 songs on what is otherwise a phenomenal album. It's the same sort of thing here. If I'm listening to this front to back, I'm not skipping Holding On, Thrill, or Say It, even though they're my least favorite tracks, because at my least favorite, they're still like an 8, 8.5 on 10. And the rest of this album is just so incredibly well done and polished and digestible and incredibly replayable. This is another debut album. I mean, I know they've had a lot of releases prior, but for the debut album for Concrete Castles and their first, to my understanding, debut full length of original material, I mean, it's just impeccable. So well executed. Even though it's my second favorite album, I think that this is probably the biggest recommend I have for this month, just because of the sheer accessibility of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
How do I respond to that? Anthemic chants are the key to my heart, and Thrill has them.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, it's the same sort of thing with like that. My least favorite song off Pressure is what is it, Grave or whatever?
Oh, come
What's
on.
the one? What's the one with the?
Yes.
You will never
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, so that's my least favorite. I'm not an anthemic chant kind of guy. Is what
And
it
I
comes down
very
to.
clearly am. And that's what it comes down
Yes.
to.
Disappointed.
I'm sorry.
God, where do I go from there? Trying to pick my favorite song on this album was actually really hard because, as I mentioned, I think this album has a very high floor, being that
yeah.
there is not a drop in quality on any of these 11 tracks here. But I also think that it doesn't really reach the peaks of a lot of my other favorite albums of this year. And I think that is what is going to hurt the most when I get to making my top 10 albums at the end of the year and this ends up at number 11. I'm calling it right now. It's going to fucking happen. And it's going to hurt my soul.
Stop that.
It's
You
going to
son of
hurt
a
my
bitch.
fucking soul.
Actually, I'm not gonna lie. It might happen for me too. And I'm gonna be pissed about it. I am going to make every possible effort to make this album end up in my top 10.
Yeah,
So
it
if it
deserves
doesn't, know that I have struggled emotionally.
Yeah. I will struggle emotionally putting the top 10 albums of the year together this year more than any other year.
It's like what's that tweet? It's got the crying black dude with the gun, and it's like, when the race war happens, I'm gonna have to shoot Tony Hawk. This album is my Tony Hawk, and my top 10 albums are a race war. This is what this is coming down to. Was that reference too obscure? I think it might
I
have
don't
been
get
a
the
little too
reference, but
niche.
it was funny anyway. So I laughed.
Hold on. I gotta hit Google because now, without the reference, it's a little rough. Hold on.
While you're doing that, I
Tony
said
Hawk
Porcelain.
Race War.
While you're doing that, I said Porcelain was probably my favorite song here. I think I could give it to any of Porcelain, Thrill, Just a Friend, or Wish I Missed You. You ask me on any given day, and I can say any of those 4 songs, and I won't be mad at myself for picking any of them. Similarly, I don't really think I have a weakest song here. I don't think there's a weak link here. When comparing to Spiritbox, which I think is the better album for my personal taste, I think that song has a much lower stretch of 3 songs on that album compared to this album here, which is crazy to think about. But every song is just consistently really fun, really enjoyable, super accessible. Yeah, it's fantastic. As I said, anthemic chants are the key to my heart, and Thrill has those, making it one of my favorites. There's so much catchiness going on in all of these songs. I think Just a Friend has one of the catchiest choruses I've heard all year.
Oh yeah.
I think Hidden Faces, again, similarly with the chants. It took me a few listens to kind of grow on it, but it's super bouncy. And then Say It as well. I think you said it leans more into the pop direction, which I definitely agree with. It goes into a bit of a strange drop with kind of more of an EDM structure.
Yeah.
And that clicked with me on first listen more than I expected it to. I really enjoy that song. I think if I had to pick a weak link, it's probably Atmosphere. Unfortunately, I think that song is great, but as I said, this album has such a high floor, and it just doesn't have as many peaks for me. So it's very it's just all consistently really fucking good. I wish I could have heard this live. I really wish I could have.
I'm upset for you.
Me too, because I remember you were a big part in encouraging me to get that ticket. And I got that ticket knowing that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to go, but I knew if I got that ticket, I would have to force myself to try to figure it out instead of just inevitably be like, shucks, tickets sold out, guess I'm not going. So, at least I made an attempt.
You tried your best, and that's what matters.
Yep.
Check this album out if you haven't. Just so good.
Moving on.
Yes, sir.
Eidola.
You have put out what would this be? I think it's their 4th album, The Architect.
I've got a feeling you've been selling me out. I never bought it. I never wanted for you to be so cynical.
Man, I believe in Andrew Wells' supremacy.
I also believe in Andrew Wells' supremacy.
Yo, it's Justin.
Hi,
He's back.
Justin. Sorry,
Oh,
we locked him behind a paywall for the last few discussions.
Yeah. If you want to hear his thoughts on Spiritbox, you got to drop $5.
I'm just the neighbor from Home Improvement with his just like head up. You can't see the neckline.
You are actually the neighbor from Home
say-
Improvement. This is the architect. Justin's our architect.
Yes. This album good. Andrew Wells is a masterpiece.
Truly a gift and I mean, like, not only on this album, but for carrying that Dance Gavin Dance tour on his back. Dude, friggin' Tillian got sick and he took over cleans. John got sick and he took over uncleans. And that was while performing his own Eidola sets. What can this man not do? The answer is nothing. Because he works at a gym, he's jacked, he's got vocal powerhouse God bless Andrew Wells. And you know what? I think that vocally, he is at his best on this album. Both in terms of his cleans, and also that for Hidden Worship, he learned how to do uncleans. And it's not that he just learned how to do it for that one song, because I had the pleasure of seeing them live on that Dance Gavin Dance tour, and he sounded fantastic, almost just like studio. And he also took over a lot of the uncleans and some of the other songs that they were singing. So the dude is a beast and cannot be stopped. Man, we were talking about how, with Sunkiller earlier in the Spiritbox discussion, how openers that were good had been kind of sparse this year. And I feel like with Spiritbox, Hidden Worship on this album, and the next album that we're going to talk about, we got 3 really, really good album openers that worked really well with the second song to come after it.
Yep.
Like, Hidden Worship into Counterfeit Shrines is just such a incredible transition. I haven't spent... I've only listened to this album a couple of times. I've listened to the songs that I saved, a lot since this came out, but I haven't listened to the album as a whole more than, probably 4 or 5 times. And I think that with every listen, I enjoyed this album more. I think because one of the sentiments that I feel like maybe, at least I was under the impression that we shared that first night, is that it may have gone on a little bit too long, and that some of the stylistic choices we weren't as high on, that they felt a little repetitive. Given some time and space from that first listen, I've come to appreciate a lot of the instrumental nuances on this album more, because there are a lot of them. I mean, something like the choices on Elephant Bones, the closer Ancient Temperament, Empty Gardens, that one song that sounds like 7 different songs in one. The more I've listened to it, the more I've gotten used to it, and the more I can appreciate it. In the same way that we were talking about how with Spiritbox, the instrumentals accentuate the vocals, I feel like it's the opposite here. I feel like Andrew Wells, in a sense, feels like he's using his voice as an instrument to help the other instruments flow, and it works really well together. And that may just be a me thing, and it feels weird to say about somebody as vocally talented as Andrew Wells, that he is supporting the instruments and helping them flow. But the sound that they've achieved here, as sometimes maybe as chaotic as it sounds on certain songs, like, I don't know, maybe a Mutual Fear, Elephant Bones, even again, like on Empty Gardens. It just feels like one cohesive package that even if it's chaotic, it still works and it flows really well. I think this is also probably the most accessible Eidola album. Having heard the other 3, this is less conceptual as the others, and thus gives more room to kind of experiment, I guess, in a way. Not that the other albums didn't have any experimentation, but this feels like the most diverse stylistically, and I am here for it, because it brings us a song like Perennial Philosophy, which feels like the most post-hardcore-y, I guess, generic post-hardcore song that this band has ever done. And
I guess that would explain why it's my... Yep, that's my favorite song as well.
And I think that is driven by two instances in that song. It's the piano and the delivery on The Sea of All My Karma is just like, yeah, okay, I'm fully sold. Like, I don't know. This is just such a well-executed, well-balanced album with so many vocal and especially instrumental directions explored that it feels less like an album to me and more like a collection of songs that are art that need to be unpacked and explored, which is the nature of this band and sort of the complexity of they're basically like the post-hardcore Silent Planet in a lot of their lyricism, especially on that last album, To Speak to Listen. And so it's that same sort of thing here, and while the lyricism may not be as deep as it was on those albums, it feels like the instrumentation has taken its place as something that needs to be unpacked. Because it's overall less of an accessible album than, say, a Concrete at Castles that we, talked about just before, it feels a little less replayable, both in terms of content and in length, but I want to keep going back to it solely on the basis that I feel like I pick up something new every single time I hear it.
So this album had the displeasure, is that the word I'm looking for? Releasing on this cursed date of September 17th. So I have not spent as much time with this album as I would have liked to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame because I really think I would like this band more than I currently do.
If it was just released on a different day.
If it was released on a different day.
I am exactly the same, and it is frustrating. It is very frustrating. Like, this album is... I would definitely like this album more if it just didn't release on September the 17th, because I added 4 of the new songs from this album to my playlist, and I woke up the next morning, had Spiritbox, Concrete Castles, and our next album we'll be discussing, The Plot and You, in my playlist, and I had zero desire in the world to go back to this album.
I'm
even
exactly
like
the same.
even 3
exactly
weeks,
the same.
even like weeks removed from it at this point, I cannot bring myself to get excited for this album or this band. And I know there's good stuff to unpack here, but this album got hard fucked by the release date for me, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I need to give it a second chance, but I feel like even like revisiting some of the songs just to refresh my memory, I just could not get into it. I just have a really sour taste in my mouth with this band, and I cannot blame it on anything other than the release date and when I listened to it, and it's really frustrating. Because, like, I can't blame it on anything other than myself, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I will say, as much shit as I talked about Rise Records beforehand, especially with them releasing it on the same day as Spiritbox, which I still think hurt them. They charted, I think this was their best charting album on Billboard, out of all the previous 3. So it still got a lot of recognition despite being released. So now it's like, or on the same day as Spiritbox, so it's like, now it's slightly less fuck Rise Records, but even with as relatively high as I am on this album, I was still in the same boat as you guys, where I didn't get to revisit this a lot until like the past week and a half. Just because of everything else that was coming out with albums that we heard last Friday. Or I guess, whatever, the first of the month. And then especially, too, with, Spiritbox, Concrete Castles, just albums that were more easily digestible.
Yeah.
So I chose to revisit them instead. But
what I'm hoping for is I give myself some time to listen to this and then maybe give a more positive review, maybe in the top 10 episode. Maybe. It's very...
You know what I think I need to do with this album? I think I just need to remove every single song from this album in my playlist and revisit it at some point next year.
Yeah.
I deadass think that's the only thing that can save me from leaving this album as one of the most disappointing albums of the year right now.
Oh,
I wouldn't go that far, but...
I mean, it's only disappointing just because of like.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's
Like,
only
yeah,
disappointing
no, I
because
know.
of circumstance. Like
Mhm.
musically, it's. I mean, I was disappointed by a couple of songs, but I did find myself enjoying a lot of songs. I think Hidden Worship and Counterfeit Shrines is great. Perennial Philosophy is fantastic. My favorite song here. Ancient Temperament is the closer. Had my attention more than just about any other song on this album until it faded out for 2 minutes, and I was like, damn, you really could have done something cool with that, but you didn't. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've said everything.
Well, I mean, again, it's part the release date, and also that, like, even though this is exploring a different side and leans into post-hardcore, it's still at its heart swancore in the vein of Dance Gavin Dance, and I know that that style of unclean, sometimes the instrumentation is not
doesn't appeal to me
necessarily
as
up
much.
your alley,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, I think if this ended up being one of your most disappointing albums of the year, I would be sad, but I would understand why. And
I don't think it's gonna be my most disappointing.
That's
I
what
don't
was
think so
gonna
anyway.
Sorry.
I will say that I think I liked this album more than I liked Afterburner by Dance Gavin Dance, and that's the best comparison that I
Ooh.
have.
Wow, yeah, I'm just gonna kill myself.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But like,
Yeah, bye, guys.
to be fair,
Have fun
to
reviewing
be
this.
fair, to my perspective, Afterburner is the only full Dance Gavin Dance album that I've heard. This is like the only other Swancore album that I've heard in full, pretty much, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
So
That's
like,
fair.
what else? Like, there's all.
Did you ever listen to Hail the Sun?
I never did get to that. No.
Coward, you need to do that before the end of the year.
Remind
I mean,
me.
I would suggest that you listen to that. I thought it was pretty okay.
Smile.
Uh,
Yeah, from my perspective, I liked this more than the Afterburner because I generally do not like John Mess vocals.
Ooh, okay. This fucked me up because I saw that there was going to be a John Mess feature on an Eidola album, and I about shit myself with excitement. Mutual Fear is my least favorite song off this album.
Yeah.
Which feels fucking wrong. Like, I don't know what it is, but
You've committed sacrilege.
I have, to myself, to the Swancore
Sounds like,
community.
Secret band.
Yeah, Secret Band featuring fucking Andrew Wells.
Yeah, basically.
Which, again, sounds like Wet Dream, almost of sorts. So it's like, I don't know what's not clicking, but yeah, I don't know. But anyway.
I feel
If you
bad,
weren't-
like, leaving such a sour taste on this album.
Yeah, well, I
feel
think
really bad
that
about
leaves
it,
it up
but-
to the listener to. You've got our perspectives. Go listen
Form
to
your-
it.
form
and
your
see
own
what you
opinion.
think. Yeah, because we got a lot of different.
maybe
ways of
we'll be
looking at it.
talking about this later, like in December.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Who knows, guys?
If I had to take a guess, though, I think we'll be talking about this next one in December. Just a hunch. Just a small hunch.
Maybe potentially.
Maybe.
The Plot and You have dropped their brand new song. Their brand new album, Swan Song.
No, we're cutting that. We're cutting that in post.
Alright, yep.
You lost your chance to do the transition. Jacob, take it away.
The Plot and You have released their new album, Swan Song. All right, so, this is gonna be an interesting conversation. What do
How
we
so?
what do we think? I want to hear what Justin thinks first, actually.
I didn't get through the entire thing. I think I stopped at Paradigm.
Oh man,
I
What?
know.
It sounds
I
like fucking Swiper from Dora.
It also didn't help.
Aw,
I
man.
didn't clear my throat. Yeah, I tried to listen to the entire thing, but I think I fell asleep when I got to Paradigm and just kind of haven't gone back to it.
okay.
You
This
fell
guy-
asleep during the album?
Yeah.
Nothing. Pain. Pain. Oh,
Okay. I'm
Me
sorry
next?
for asking you.
Me next? Me next?
go Jake, go.
I think this is better than Dispose.
Oh
Whoa,
no!
whoa. Okay.
We're 0 for 2 on good takes so far.
I think we're 0 for 3,
I
actually.
don't.
But with my take, I think we're 0 for 3 with mine.
Actually, fuck it, we're 0 for 4. Yours counts as 3.
Oh, man.
No, I think
I
mine
can't
counts
believe
as
you
2,
just said
thinking
this.
that
So-
Swan Song is better than Dispose, and thinking Dispose is just not a great album.
Oh.
Oh man.
Man. Here, Jacob, can I give you a good opinion?
Sure.
Hivemind in shambles, by the way.
Yeah. This album.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like Derek and I are gonna say the same thing.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'll give you my opinion, and you see if we're on the same line. I'll give you my baseline opinion. This album is really good. My favorite song off this album, I like more than my favorite song off Dispose. I think that Dispose is the better record and sounds like a logical follow-up to this record as opposed to the other way around.
I don't know if I agree with that last part, but
Okay.
do I like? I don't know.
So
if I can
what's your
say- I
favorite
don't-
song off Dispose?
My favorite song off Dispose? I don't even know, dude.
You're
There's
asking
so
Jacob to
many
pick a
good
favorite
ones.
child.
There's no, you can't make me do that. I can't answer that question. I can
Actually,
clearly
shit, I
tell
don't-
you on this album too. No, I can tell you.
Okay, so
clearly
what's
what
your
my
favorite off this album?
Whole Without Me.
Okay. Good
Good,
choice.
good take.
Not my
good take.
favorite, but good take. Actually, you know what? Now that you say
I'm just
that,
gonna
looking at the
interject real
Dispose
quick.
track listing, and I can't pick a favorite.
I'm just gonna
I can,
interject real quick. Whole Without Me might be my favorite song as well. Keyword might. There's one other contender, and it's called Paradigm.
This
Interesting.
Whole Without Me and Freed are my number 2 and 3. Too Far Gone is my favorite song off this album.
Respectable pick.
Okay, we have the same top three, just in different
Let's
order.
fucking go. Okay, perfect.
I think we might just all. Where does Paradigm?
Out of
place?
curiosity, is your number 4 Letters to a Dead Friend?
Yeah.
Okay, is number 5? Okay, now. Is number 5 Paradigm?
I actually think Paradigm is one of the worst songs.
Okay, good. We're on the same boat then. I thought that you were gonna say it was, and I wanted to see if it would end there.
I think my top 5 are those 5 songs you mentioned there: Whole Without Me, Freed, Paradigm, Too Far Gone, and Letters to a Dead Friend.
Okay, so after the Hivemind was in shambles approximately 3 minutes ago, we've course corrected a little bit.
We have course corrected just a little
Now
bit.
back on the right track. Here, so first and foremost, much in the same way that we have been singing the praises of Andrew Wells and Courtney LaPlante, fucking Landon Tours is such a national treasure and needs to be protected at all costs. Because his vocal delivery on this, the way he transitions between something as like melodic and flowy as the chorus on Too Far Gone, and just, ripping raw unclean.
Far Gone sounds like his solo work.
It does.
Literally,
It does. It
literally
does.
as his solo work song.
And, I love him all the more for it because I think his vocals sound incredible on this album. I think that this album, in contrast to Dispose, is carried by Landon Tour's vocals. And what I mean by that is that on Dispose, you have instrumentation and production choices on songs like Rigged, Feel Nothing, The Sound, Disposable Fix, that all feel like they're memorable in their own right, and all the instrumentation sounds very pronounced, and it comes together cohesively. I feel like in this album, it's Landon Tours flexing on everybody for 10 straight songs, and the instrumentation isn't quite as memorable or as, polished, I guess. And I think for me what that comes down to is the mixing choices on this album, that it feels like the instrumentation at times is very muddled, and the drums sound really, really synthetic on some songs to the point where I couldn't listen to them because they just sounded so electronically created. It feels like there was a lot of choices on this album that were artistic that aren't clicking with me. And I think that that's the basis for what I was saying earlier, that it feels like that Dispose is the logical follow-up to this album, in the sense that this album has some of the same elements, like a Letters to a Dead Friend, in terms of its overall vibe, feels a lot similar to Rigged. Both in terms of like as a song and as an opener.
Yep.
But it feels like because the instrumentation and such is more muddled, and the production choices on Dispose were a little more out there than they were on this album, outside of maybe something like a Paradigm, it feels like Swan Song would be this band's venture into this style, and then Dispose is the refined successor to Swan Song. So instead of going from Happiness and Self-Destruction, which was good, to Dispose, which I consider to be this band's greatest record and one of the most quintessential albums in like this side of music just ever, it feels like that's an upward trajectory, and then there's just a slight downward trend with this album. Because instead of taking what was good about Dispose and pushing it further, it feels like, compared to Dispose, this album plays it a little too safe, if that makes sense.
There's so much I want to say.
Get
I'm
into it,
all.
my friend.
I'm gonna disagree where I don't think I think instrumentally this album is better than Dispose.
Okay.
And I think this is a good follow-up to Dispose. But the problem I have with it, and this is me comparing it to Dispose, is that Dispose is a cohesive story. This feels like a bunch of singles.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting.
And that is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it is why I can connect with Dispose more. And I think Dispose is better just because it is this whole cohesive story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this album it has elements from like Happiness and Self-Destruction and Dispose combined, and it is very well done. And like I say, Whole Without Me is literally Crows and Dispose mixed. And I think that's why I love it the most. That's my favorite song. Yeah. Also, I don't feel like this album has as much of an emotional connection. As Dispose did. It's not as emotionally driven, and that is why I do not like it as much.
For me, that ties back into the instrumentation feeling not as like pronounced and raw, I guess. Like the vocals are as raw as they were before, I feel like, but the instrumentation doesn't hit as hard as I would like it to. So it's not driving home those pronounced vocals in the way that this album doesn't hit the way I want it to, basically. Would be a way to put it.
It's our expectations.
Yep, I agree. You're talking.
It's kind of I think.
Are you talking about Spiritbox?
Yeah, you're talking about Spiritbox. Yeah. How are you supposed to follow up Eternal Blue?
Yeah, how the fuck do you follow up? How do you follow?
Yeah,
right.
Even though I don't think of Dispose in as high of a light, I definitely get what you mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you know what you saying this feels like a collection of singles. Really, I think reinforces the fact that we can pick our favorite song off of this one, but we can't off of Dispose, because with the singles, it's easier to like. When a song is released as a single, you're supposed to like it more, and so we can find something here that feels a bit more accessible, replayable, whatever.
100%.
I want to touch. I want to touch on that because I don't know if I would agree with this. Feels just like a collection of singles, because I feel like Whole Without Me and To Freed puts a nice bow tie on this album, and I feel like Letters to a Dead Friend is a really solid opener that has like that build up of like an atmospheric energy.
Oh no, I agree.
I 100% agree with Whole Without Me and To Freed. That is like the only section of the album that I think has like cohesion.
Dispose vibes.
Yeah.
With cohesion. Yeah. Well, I mean, like really, the first the tracks 1, 9, and 10 on both this and Dispose feel very similar to me. Like the sound into Disposable Fix, I feel like the vibes that those two songs have, they've got the same sort of vibe, whereas like Whole Without Me and Freed have the same sort of vibe, and then Rigged and Letters to a Dead Friend have the same sort of progression.
Not to embarrass myself any more than I already have, but I forgot that there was a song called The Sound on Dispose.
It's okay to have a shitty take. It's fine.
I've had plenty of them. I'm used to it.
So, what do you think about the name of the album? Because usually what a swan song is like the end, right? The end of an era, or the end.
I don't like it. Because, for a multitude of reasons. A, if this band stops putting out music, I'm going to be sad. B, if this is the album that this band ends on, I'm going to be sad. Just by virtue of, like, I want a band to end on, like, a high note, their best work, like, one last goodbye to everybody, and I feel like, unlike Dispose, there is further work that could be done on this album to make it worthy of being that final send-off. And I also just don't like the implications of the title. Like, the speculation alone is enough to make me not like it, let alone the actual, like, hypothetical repercussions of it. I'm hoping that there, and maybe there is already, and I just missed it, but some sort of interview where somebody asks them about the title and somebody from the band clarifies, because, like, I don't want this band to stop making music. That would make me very upset.
I almost feel like that's reading too far into it. I feel like the plot and you are too successful to just quit at this point.
Well, what if it's like a soft reset, like they're
It could
changing
be.
sound?
Could be, I guess. I don't know.
want them to change their sound,
Yeah.
though.
Exactly.
Because there's nothing that sounds like them. Like,
Right.
even if this isn't my favorite style of, like, whatever the hell genre you want to call the plot in you.
Wouldn't that be something? That they're like, yeah, we were going to make this our last album, but then we went viral on TikTok and it revitalized the band. Like,
What else is there to say? Am I off the wall thinking that there's like two songs on here that kind of remind me of Imagine Dragons?
I know one of the songs you're talking about, and
Which
it is
one?
the intro song.
Yeah.
And I would agree at some points.
The other
It was
one I
very
was
brief,
thinking
though.
was Too Far Gone with the chorus.
I don't see that. I see
No.
that
I
as a Landon Tours like solo. It sounds like his solo work.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I don't know. Particularly Letters to a Dead Friend, just the way that song builds with the drum work in particular very much reminded me of some like classic Imagine Dragons, which was
Dog.
really funny.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, the chorus of Too Far Gone, like, goes up to Imagine Dragons' discography, kills it, like, takes a shit on it, and dumps it in a river. Like, yeah,
I don't know, like, I don't know if I would go that far, but I think you
I
are
would.
onto something.
I would. You could take my least favorite song off this album, and I think it's better than my favorite Imagine Dragons song. But I don't know. I don't want to get into any Imagine Dragons discourse.
Yeah.
I think we've already mentioned them enough this episode.
We have.
Um,
Moving on.
no. Plot and You, not as good as Dispose, but still a lot to like here. Go check it out because it feels like, not in the same way as like a Concrete Castles, but it feels like there's something for everyone here. So,
Before we actually close, do you guys have a song that is like the most underwhelming or like least memorable, least favorite?
You know, I said Paradigm earlier, but I'm actually gonna say Enemy. I'm changing it.
Interesting.
most underwhelming for me is Fall Again. Just on the basis of the drums sounding so synthetic, I can't get over it.
Mine
Wait,
goes
Jake.
to
Yeah.
No. No. Yeah, okay, hold on.
I was literally about to say, Jake, you have to say it because you always say it.
It's
Oh,
too
I
heavy.
see. Holy shit, I forgot that song was on here, and I thought you were going to say
Yep.
Too Far Gone, and I was going to punch my
Too
computer
far.
in
I
the
already
face.
said that Too Far Gone is like a top 4 song. on
Well,
this album.
I didn't know if you're switching up on me.
On the first day that I listened to it, I thought Both to Blame was my least favorite. I've actually grown on that song a lot. At this point, I can't even tell you what Too Heavy sounds like. So, yeah. Face Me grew on me as well. I still don't particularly like the pre-chorus, but the song is better than I initially was on it.
Mm.
I still think Paradigm... We didn't get to talk about Paradigm as a single. Because it released, like, the week before the album dropped. But Paradigm is sick. Sick breakdown. I'm surprised we kind of haven't mentioned that yet. It's definitely very close between Paradigm and Whole Without Me. I lean towards Paradigm just because of how much I went back to it the week before the album dropped. Like, I went back to it a surprising amount considering how, like, I wasn't super into this band at that point. I'm hearing the full album of Swan Song, I'm definitely more into them now than I was just after hearing Dispose. But I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to pick between a single and a non-single as my favorite, and I feel like there's some bias going into it just because of the way they were released. And I don't know why, but both songs are really good. At this point, I can say that I like all 10 tracks here, and I can't say that about Dispose. So I'm much... I don't want to say I'm much happier with this one, because I feel like that's doing a disservice to Dispose. But I'm definitely happier with Swan Song as an overall product, I think. I'm going back to songs on this album more than I am Dispose, and I think there's more memorable... There's a larger quantity of memorable songs. I think, like, Rigged and Feel Nothing are, like, my two favorite songs by them. But I think outside of those two songs, Dispose has not stuck with me very much.
So, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because, well, I'm going to agree with the first half of your statement, not the second half. I think that Dispose's songs are much more memorable, but I think that because Swan Song is more digestible overall, I'm going to end up revisiting the songs from Swan Song more because they have less of an emotional attachment, like Jacob was talking about earlier. Like, it's like, I listen to Rigged and The One You Love a lot, but something like The Sound, Disposable Fix, Feel Nothing, I Always Wanted to Leave, are all songs where it's like, I'll listen to them, but I have to be in a very specific mood for them to hit right, as opposed to Swan Song with, like, Too Far Gone, or even, you know, Letters to a Dead Friend, Whole Without Me and Freed, where I can just listen to it whenever, just because there's not as much of that emotional impact. So, you're right about revisiting them more. Saying that these are more memorable kind of hurt me. Like, I feel like a piece of my soul just kind of collapsed.
I've been hurting you a lot this episode.
You have done
I'm
nothing
sorry.
but hurt me. What did I do to you, man? Although I think I'm about to hurt Jacob here in about the next minute or two, so...
Oh, no.
Next minute or
I'm
two.
so
How about, like,
sorry.
next 10 seconds or so?
Hit me with it.
I feel like, oh no.
I'm so sorry in advance. Sleep
Sweet Token!
have put out their second album, This Place Will Become Your Tomb. Follow-up, 2019 Sundowning, which got a
I need
lot
to hear
of
that
people
album.
intrigued in this band.
I need to listen to that album.
Okay.
I'm intrigued after hearing this album. I'm intrigued for
Jacob.
more.
First and foremost, do you like this more or less than Sundowning?
So, oh, this is gonna be funny. This album
Mhm.
is the Dispose of 2021, and I will say, Sundowning is a collection of singles, just like the Swan Song, just like Swan Song, and that's literally how they released it. And this album is the Dispose of 2021.
I guess that lines up with the fact that I'm not as high on Dispose and I'm not as high on this. I guess some things never change, huh?
This album is
I will continue to
cohesive.
take unreasonable digs at Dispose just because it fits in with
You
what we're
dick.
talking about. I'm sorry.
Dude,
It's just not
Vessel
They
fair.
don't
is
deserve
literally
it.
the British Landon Tours.
I can buy it, you know? Outside of the whole like hidden identity and the mask, I can buy it. I can see where you're coming from.
Derek?
I will not make a comment because I just don't even know where to begin with that. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm like sitting there processing the statement in my head, and it's like you took two of the same charge magnets and tried to put them together. It's just kind of like bouncing off of each other.
You have caused an error 404. It does not compute.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Jacob, would you like me to hurt you now or later?
You know what? I wanna hear what you have to say so I can counter it.
Okay, perfect. I think that this is better than Sundown.
I think you should preface with saying you only listen to this album like how many times?
Once all the way through, twice technically to revisit some songs.
That gives me enough information.
Okay.
That gives you enough information to
We'll see,
validate
because I know
anything
you've
Derek is
listened to
about
this like
say.
300 billion times. I think that this is better than Sundowning.
Mhm.
I think that this blows Sundowning out of the water.
Okay.
I still do not like this album. And it's not because, well, no, I won't say that yet. I think that the singles, well, two of the singles in Alkaline and The Love
We
You
don't
Want.
talk about the third single.
Yeah,
okay?
fuck that song. Are two of some of the best songs I've heard all year. Alkaline still being my favorite song off this album, second only to the closer, Missing Limbs, which I think is a phenomenal song. I love Missing Limbs. The Love You Want coming in at number 3. I think that there are lots of moments on this album that are good. There's the breakdown towards the end of High Water, I believe it is, which I really enjoyed listening to. It made me very happy. Telomeres overall as a song, good. I think Atlantic works fantastically.
Another fantastic
as-
opening song.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. How do I go about this? You know how, and I am so sorry in advance. You know how I got, we were talking about the Escape the Fate album earlier.
Oh wait. No. No.
Yep.
No,
I'm gonna
no,
say it.
no,
I'm really fucking
no,
sorry.
No.
I look,
Justin,
Escape.
please help me. Justin, please. I'm
Justin
literally
can't
on my
save you
hands
now.
and knees. I'm on my hands and knees right now.
Justin can't save you.
I will say after 2 full listens of the album, I could not get into it.
Yes. You're alone, Jacob.
Only because the vocal delivery is very similar in each song, and I feel like no
music
song
to
is
my
like
ears.
unique.
Music to my ears.
What?
Jacob, I want you to
got-
remember that through fire, all things are renewed. This is going
This
to
is
hurt,
my- this
but
is
you'll
my
end up on
fire.
the. This is your fire.
This
is my
feels
fire.
like penance because when I listened to that Escape the Fate album, I got halfway through every single song and I was bored. The difference between that album and this album is that with Escape the Fate, I skipped the song because I knew that there was no potential for me to get anything more than what I was hearing. Sleep Token, I sat through and listened to every single song front to back because I truly believe that this band has an incredible creative talent and ability when they choose to use it. If you asked me to tell you one single thing about Hypnosis, Mine, Like That, Distraction, or Descending, I could not do it.
Okay,
Because
that's doing some criminal speak to Hypnosis and like that.
You know what? That's fine.
But the
Because
rest of that I'll agree with.
After Atlantic and until I got to the singles that released, I was so incredibly bored. Because I feel like the vocal delivery, as good as it is very samey throughout a lot of this. And any differences within the songs were not enough to make me want to revisit them. Like, I was not drawn back by any given moment that I felt was strong enough to justify me trying to force myself to like the song. I feel the same about Fall For Me. I feel the same about Distraction and Descending. I feel the same about everything except the breakdown in High Water and everything except the latter half of Telomeres. I think that in the same way that some people just can't get into Dance Gavin Dance because they don't have the Weedly gene,
Me.
where the way that the
Weedly gene.
the way that the guitars sound and just that overall swancore sound is not for some people. They could try all they want to get into Dance Gavin Dance, and they couldn't do it. Conversely, people who are really into Dance Gavin Dance, I mean, they've got one of the most lethal, dedicated fan bases of probably any band in the scene. In that same vein, I have seen nothing but praise for this album on Twitter. Kaylee Wolf, the vocalist for Rivals, tweeted out earlier that she had listened to this album nearly 100 times in full. You know, I've got so many people in so many different spheres of the Twitterverse and the scene side of things that are talking about how much they love this album and how into it they are, and Worship, We Love Sleep Token, you know, top 10 album of 2019, AOTY 2021. And I can see why, but I don't think that Sleep Token is ever going to be something that clicks with me, that makes me love it as I feel like people who are really into Sleep Token do.
You just don't have the Worship gene.
I do not have the Worship gene.
You have the Weedly gene. You just
But I did actually. I don't even know if I have the Weedly gene, because outside of Eidola, there's like 80 billion Swancore bands, and I just do not like a single one of them. But that's a discussion for another day. So I'm sorry. I feel bad comparing this band to Escape the Fate, because they are objectively 1 billion times better than that band has ever been and will ever be. But I was bored by this album because it is not something that I am able to connect with. And I'm sorry.
I'm gonna follow up here, Jacob, real quick, if you don't mind. Can you last like another minute or two?
Dude,
Will you
I'm
be
like
okay?
dying over here. My brother's dog came into my room. He's here to comfort me.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you have someone. So yeah, I'm basically similar to Derek, just a little bit higher on this album. I think Atlantic is a fantastic opener, but not something I'll really revisit on its own. Like, if I'm listening to this album, hell yeah, I'm listening to Atlantic all the way through. That song's great. Outside of that, and the singles, Hypnosis, Like That. I mean, really, it's just Hypnosis and Like That are the only two songs that have stuck with me. I have Telomeres and High Water in the playlist because they have their moments, but I really only listen to those when I'm done listening to Like That and I just let it play through. But I think, yeah, Mine, Distraction, and Descending, and even Missing Limbs, sorry, Derek, those songs really don't do much for me. I feel like, generally, they all have a similar problem of they take too long to build, and the build doesn't climax in a powerful enough way for me.
That is exactly how I felt the first time I listened to this album.
And that is exactly how I felt the second time I listened to this
Every
album.
time it takes every song it felt like it takes too long to build up. And I can even see it in Alkaline.
Now, Alkaline is a masterpiece. That one is a perfect build. Favorite song on the album, by the way.
Before I go on with what I want to say, I have a question for you, Derek.
Yes.
Do you think Missing Limbs is better than Bloodsport?
Yes.
Really?
I like Missing Limbs better than any given song on Sundowning.
Wow. Okay,
Well,
I think
hold on.
Closer.
Okay, yeah. So that, I realized it directly before you said it. I don't think it's as good of a closer, but I like it much more objectively as a song. Like, I've been really into this, like, what I can only describe as, like, Starbucks music or, like, bookstore cafe music recently, where it's, like, soft and, like, warm autumn vibes and, like indie, like, one of my favorite albums this year was from a indie folk artist from fucking Iceland. And this Missing Limbs gives me that same sort of, it's kind of like a Hozier type vibe almost that I get from Missing Limbs, that for whatever reason, something about it I really enjoy. And I think it's
send
a good
Missing
closer.
Limbs to my sister because she is a big fan of Hozier.
You should.
should.
I think that Missing Limbs for me as an individual song clicks a lot more than Bloodsport and is a good song, but Bloodsport is a better closer.
Oh man, this is
Jacob, I think at this point the floor is yours.
The floor is yours, King. Go for it.
So, oh man, this is gonna be hard. I don't have anybody to bounce off of.
You
I'll
can
do my
bounce off
best.
of me. I just want to agree with you.
I'll bounce off of you on like half of this album.
So I've listened to this album. What did it say? Like I had 250 scrabbles. So how many times is that?
How many
a
songs
lot
is
of
on
times.
here?
12?
12.
12.
That's
250,
at
12,
least
that's-
24.
Fuck, am I stupid? Why did I forget how to do math? That's 8, isn't it? Right?
No.
No.
more than
No,
that.
I'm holy
It's definitely more than 8.
shit, I'm so stupid. I was thinking about how many times. Wait, what the fuck math did I just do in my head?
Anyways, I've listened to this album a lot.
It's like
And-
21.
And I still do not know what it is about. I feel like every song has like a double meaning, and I think that is very intriguing to me. And the fact that they keep their this whole band is intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
they keep their identities what's the word, kept secret. And I'm just gonna read a line from Atlantic, and maybe you guys can see where I'm coming from with this double meaning thing. So flood me like Atlantic, bandage up the trenches, anything to get me to sleep. Now, is that actually sleeping, or is that the deity sleep that they praise? Do I know? I don't know.
I am not
Hmm.
invested enough in the lore of this band
Yeah.
to give you an answer.
I don't know what you smoked when you listened to this.
Jacob has ascended to a higher plane of mental being
No,
after listening to this
no.
album.
I am under the impression, in terms of meaning, based on what I heard. I'd have to pull specific lyrics, and to do that, I would have to listen to the album again. But I noticed it at the time, and also based on what I've seen people say on Twitter, that this album is about like emotional ruin in the vein of like a breakup or losing
Oh,
somebody
Yeah,
important to you.
my interpretation of this album is Vessel it's a breakup, but it's because of his devotion to sleep. That is my
Okay.
interpretation of this album. And I'm not sure. I feel like I'm totally off base, and I kind of like not knowing because it
Yeah.
makes me invested into it more.
No, I see what you're saying.
And I'm talking about the lyrics here right now, but just instrumentally, this is all thought out so well. Like the whole album has like this underwater vibe to it, and I don't even words cannot describe how much I love this album. It's,
You are captivated by this album. Every sense of the word.
yeah. You can say I'm hypnotized.
Yup.
Yeah, probably. This album is the love you want.
Yes. And even songs like Fall for. Can you hear that dog, by the way?
I heard it like 10 seconds ago, and I was like, what the fuck?
I thought I heard like a door.
Anyways,
Same thing.
even like Fall for Me, after delving into the lyrics, can you shut up, dog? I'm trying to talk about my favorite album of the month. And
I like how even the dog doesn't want you to talk about it.
shut up.
Would you say the dog is a distraction?
So yeah,
Jake.
Speaking of, that's my least favorite song.
Not Fall
So-
for Me. That's kind of criminal.
Shut
I
up.
think it just has the least uniqueness. So I was
Fair
saying about Fall for Me. I think it is like I do not like the vocal effect on his voice. We didn't get to talk about this as a single because it was released in September. It is lyrically beautiful. And like I said, everything about this band is so intriguing to me, and I just want to know what this is about. And I think
But you also don't.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I it's designed. I think they designed it that way. They designed the album that way so that you're immersed in it, basically. And so you get like the diehard fans, like Derek was talking about, and I guess I'm one of them. Now let's talk about like
Chemistry.
that. No, that's a good one though. Like That is my favorite song, and
My second favorite.
It is all because of I don't want to call it a breakdown. It's kind of a breakdown. I would call it the climax of the song. Where he's like, all your pain, and then his voice just goes off. That is my favorite moment on the entire album, and it is not even close. I think Bessel is, I want to say, one of my favorite vocalists now. And like I said, he's the British Landon Tours.
I would say that title goes to Sam Carter, but
no, I don't think so.
I think so. Well, okay. I retract it. I retract it. Stop.
Okay.
I realized the oh fuck, not the consequences of my actions. The weight of what I had just said. I was also just plain wrong. I was approaching it in the wrong manner. That's my bad.
Moving on.
No, we're not moving on.
Okay.
So, this album is not as heavy as Sundowning.
No.
And I think at first I was disappointed. I think, Jake, you could probably tell that when we first listened to it together. I was kind of disappointed when I first heard this. And I think, I'm going to say it again, it's because I didn't understand, and I still don't understand, the whole album. And this is, all I can say is it's my favorite album of the month, and it's just, literally just because they're so intriguing. Everything about this band is so beautiful. And I would like to highlight moments in almost every song, but I feel like that would be getting way too into it, and we'll talk about this.
I mean, look, we've already mentioned Atlantic is a sick opener. I'll go and add Hypnosis has some sick instrumentation. We already mentioned Like That. We've already talked about The Love You Want. We've already talked about Alkaline. Everything beyond that is forgettable. So I think we've covered all bases here.
No, okay. So then I'll talk about Descending and Telomeres, since Derek talked about High Water. Descending, you actually feel like you're descending when you go in, when the song starts. That is, I think, a very good creative choice. I don't know. And then the guitar solo in Telomeres is also one of my favorite moments on the album. A softer song on the album. Yeah. This Place Will Become Your Tomb. I will talk about this album again. And
come back in
hopefully
come back in 2 months' time for more concise thoughts.
Maybe I will have figured out what it's about. I think my interpretation, and that's the thing, maybe my interpretation is different from somebody else's, and that's the thing about music. You can interpret it however you want, and it's so cool.
Do you have any last things you want to say, Jacob, before we move
I
on?
think you guys need to listen to this album at least 10 times.
Give me 2 years.
In October, so I might.
Also, I am very sweaty now after talking about that.
We riled you up
passionate,
real
it's
bad,
passionate.
apparently.
I am passionate about this album. This band is very intriguing, and I want to see them live so bad.
That's fair. I think they would be really cool to see live.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I'm not as high on this album, like in the studio version, I think they would put on a sick performance live.
Derek, have you seen them live? Did you go to the Full Oblivion? Oh.
Nope, I didn't. I missed that tour. I missed 2 Issues tours due to outside circumstances, and then I missed seeing them because COVID shut down that Dance Gavin Dance tour. And then Tyler Carter did the thing, and I will probably never get to see him live. So You know, I'm 0 for 3 on Issues, and
Damn.
subsequently 0 for 1 on Sleep Token, and just not happy about it. Because what, I missed I Prevail in Issues in 2018, I think it was. And then I missed their Beautiful Oblivion tour in 2019. I missed them 2020. Man.
Pain.
Nothing but pain.
All right, I think we spent a while on that one.
Sorry,
Understandably.
sorry.
Let's
so.
move on to
There's
these
a lot of
last two
content.
albums. I think this next one's going to be pretty quick. Maybe the last one, too. I don't know. Des Rocs has dropped his debut album, A Real Good Person in a Real Bad Place. Now, if I'm to assume, I'm basically carrying the weight on this one.
Yes. So I did not get a chance to listen to this, but I added it to my listen later when I did not intend to, because you said that it was one of the most fun albums that you had heard all year.
And I'm
So,
going to stick by that. This is the most fun album I've heard since Pink Elephant last year.
I am going to pose the challenge for you to sell this to me as to why I should not take it out of my listen later playlist.
All right,
Go.
so it starts with Tick, which is kind of a comedic, almost circus-esque opening song. It's very playful. It's very... it's just very playful. I think that's the way I'll open it. I haven't gone back to Tick itself too much. What I have gone back to a whole lot is Why, the second track on this album, which there's a beautiful transition from Tick into Why, and then it transitions from Why into Break, which is a 30-second interlude, but my god, I can't get enough of that interlude. It is so... It is my inner child, like, my 13-year-old self, when I had, like, pre-puberty, when I had still had a high-pitched voice. That is what I imagine myself sounding like when I listen to Break. It is so silly, and it works so much better than it deserves to. But back to Why. Arguably my second favorite song on this album, and I would argue the heaviest song that Des Rocs has ever put out. I don't know if you would agree with me here, but I think that you could classify Why as having two breakdowns in it. It gets heavier it blew my mind when I first heard it, just with like how heavy one of the bridge riffs got. And then it has a super fun chorus where it's just like asking, why would you leave me for dead? And it, like, Des Rocs' super charismatic voice. So those opening three tracks, I was on a super high note. It leads into Imaginary Friends, which I was very underwhelmed as a single. But in the context of the album, I really enjoyed Imaginary Friends, probably my biggest grower of the entire album. You head into MMC, Mickey Mouse Club, which is still my favorite song on this album. It is quintessential Des Rocs. I don't think you're gonna like that song anymore at this point, Derek. But it is quintessential Des Rocs' personality and charisma. Don't let a rat in the Mickey Mouse Club, and I don't care. I do not care. And then we get into, I think, what represents Pink Elephant energy more so than any other song on this album. In Ruby with the Sharpest Lies, it has... Did you ever listen to Palm Reader by Dreamers earlier this year, when I was going crazy over that song?
Holy fuck, maybe. If I did, I don't remember it.
Okay, because Ruby with the Sharpest Lies...
callback.
Yeah, Ruby with the Sharpest Lies reminds me of that song in a similar level of funk, but like, times 10. It is... Oh my... It is so good. I have one lyric pulled out, the opening to the song. 3, 2, 1, Ruby's holding a gun, but you won't know it till you're dead on the ground. 4, 5, 6, Ruby, look what you did. There's no one left to say a prayer for you now. It's such a playful song, and it is accentuated by the instrumentals. The first 6 songs, by the time I was done with Ruby with the Sharpest Lies, I was convinced that I had a top 10 album on my hands. And then I heard the rest of the album. And that's where the end of my praise gets. I've said it with Des Rocs' EPs before, but Des Rocs has consistently hit like a 3 for 5 with most of these EPs, where there's 3 really good songs and then 2 are underwhelming. this album feels like a very similar situation where the first half of this album is incredible, and then everything beyond Rui with the Sharpest Lies is very underwhelming. I can't really say much about Don't Hurt Me or Born to Lose or Rabbit Hole. I think Rabbit Hole is actually an acoustic closing track. Of the last couple of songs, The Devil Inside is the only one that I even have some recollection of enjoying. But really, what makes this album, like, that streak of Tick to Ruby with the Sharpest Lies is some of the most fun I have had with music all year, and I will go back to that streak of songs I'm going to remember that streak of songs for a while as, like, a really fun, enjoyable listen. So this probably isn't making my top 10, but it is damn near going to be one of the most memorable albums to be outside of that list. And that's kind of all that I have to say on this. How did I do? Did I sell you in any capacity?
Yes, I'm sold that I should listen to it.
At least get to Ruby with the Sharpest Lies. I don't care if you stop there. I mean, if you want to.
Look, man, if I'm halfway through and it's not
enough.
Escape the Fate, I'm just gonna finish the album.
Fair enough, yeah. There's so much personality on this album, and I feel like that's so much of why I love Des Rocs. He has so much personality and charisma. Almost like his instrumental style is very different to Hot Milk, but the charisma that I feel from Hot Milk is the same level of charisma that I feel listening to Des Rocs, and I think that's why I love this project as much as I do. There's very similar attributes that make me enjoy both bands.
Does that bring us to our final album?
Unfortunately, I did not get to this album because I was
Really?
binging Sleep Token.
Oh no!
Well,
No,
we can
Des
reinvite
Rocs,
Justin
I'm
for
talking
this
about-
one.
I'm talking about Des Rocs. I'm talking about Des Rocs.
Ah, okay. Fair
I
enough,
was
yeah.
like, what the fuck?
Sorry.
Our final album of the night, Bilmuri put out their new album, 400 Pound Back Squat.
Cause it keeps wearing me thin. The sadness pours through my skin. Will it ever end? Will it ever end?
Yeah, banger.
Justin! Hi, how's it going?
I'm alive.
Poor guy.
For the most part.
For the most part.
Would you
Well-
feel up to sharing your thoughts?
Yeah, mostly because my fever's gone down, so we're all good.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, this is a really good album. I can't decide if I like this better than last year's album,
Eggy
Peggy Pocket. But man, it does a lot of cool things with, especially like in Jacked and Stacked Mass Monster, like
Yes.
the electronic breakdown.
Yes, that is my favorite moment on the entire album.
It's so good.
So good.
All of the features I feel like bring something new to the table. Seneca is amazing as always.
Yeah.
Really the only track I couldn't get into was the closer for whatever reason. I don't know, it just seemed kind of forgettable to me. Everything else though, I think Cowboys Heavy Load is probably my favorite. And then it goes Jacked and Stacked and Lord Fart Quadzilla. But no, Bilmuri really stepped up their game. It feels like they're doing something different with every album, and this one's no different. I really enjoyed this.
I'll get what I have to say because I only listened to it like 2 times.
Okay.
I like Eggy Pocket better.
I do too. You're not alone. I think it's because, with a few notable exceptions and choices, a lot of what's on here sounds like 2019 era Bilmuri. I don't know if you guys have gone back that far and delved into
Is that Rich
That-
Sips?
that's Rich Sips and Wet Milk.
I've done a little bit, yeah.
This album, to me, leans very much into the Bilmuri, almost not steel guitar, but the guitar tone that he had on Rich Sips, or the band had, I should say, is very much present on this album. And it's got a lot of like pan flute type instrumentation that was very present on Wet Milk. And what I liked so much about Eggy Pocket is that every song felt like it was challenging anything that Bilmuri had done before and succeeding. Whereas 400-pound back squat, as fantastic as it is, don't get me wrong, I like pretty much every song on here except maybe the closer, which is interesting. Justin and I both mention it, but I think that this is a very safe Bilmuri album. That it
I think that's a good way to put it.
It doesn't
Yeah.
stretch the boundaries of what Bilmuri can do.
I feel
outside
like
of
the
maybe
most
that like
experimental
electro
thing.
breakdown.
Yeah, that I was gonna
Yeah.
say. I think that's what makes Jacked and Stacked Mass Monster my favorite song. It has that
Yeah.
really cool kind of hybrid breakdown with dubstep elements in it,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like I get anything else nearly as experimental anywhere
Right.
else.
Nope. I
And
agree.
when I'm already not the biggest fan of Bilmuri, I like it. I have every song from this album in my playlist, but it's not the most memorable thing. It's like one of those albums I'll listen to, I'll enjoy it for the week or two, and then move on, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't have that same impact to me that Eggy Pocket does. And it's because I feel like every song on Eggy Pocket has its own distinct personality. Whereas with this, it's every song is good, every song has something to offer, but all the songs fall in line with one another outside of Lord Farquadzilla in a way that makes them very similar to one another. Like Lord Farquadzilla, I feel like is the most experimental track on here. It doesn't sound like any of the other ones on here. Whereas the rest of them all on some level sound similar to one another. Like I would challenge you to listen to this album and then go listen to Rich Sips and see just how similar they sound. Like it's almost uncanny. Which again draws back to it being safe. It felt like every Bilmuri album built upon what was already there but had its own distinct style, whereas this feels a little too similar to previous Bilmuri content. And I don't know if that's a similar thing that we've been experiencing where it's like I'm comparing it to what this band has already done and therefore am enjoying it less. Like I've fallen into that trap almost where my expectations are subverting my enjoyment of the music. But no, I think that getting Jonathan Young on there, Seneca, I think Kaiko, and I'm definitely fucking butchering that even though I listen to her. Getting her as a feature is something in the same vein as getting Brody on that last album. It's just not a crossover I expected, but I'm more than willing to have it happen because
I actually want to make mention of the Trella feature on Large Throbbing Positive Mindset, because I was so intrigued with that feature that I actually went and checked out some of Trella's original material. I really enjoyed that feature. I think it was definitely my favorite feature on the album, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't know.
Actually, is that a good time for me to commit a crime and say that the Seneca feature is my least favorite feature and also my least favorite song on the album?
No, because the Seneca feature is also my least favorite feature.
Cool.
I will agree.
Oh,
Which feels
it feels like a
wrong.
crime. Yeah.
And again, it's still the same sort of thing you talked about earlier. It's like, oh, my least favorite song on the album is like an 8 out of 10 or whatever. Like, it's still a good feature. It's just Bilmuri does an incredible job of, it feels like, incorporating features that maybe you wouldn't think of to get. And so it's like you've got these other ones that are less in this style of music, except for maybe Jonathan Young. And so it feels different, whereas Seneca's been present in a lot of the Dayseeker stuff, so it's somebody that we're more familiar with and accustomed to. And so it feels less new. Which, again, it ties back to how I feel about the album as a whole, is that it's like, it doesn't feel like I'm getting an entirely new experience in the same way that it did with Eggy Pocket. But, I mean, again, it's a good album. Bilmuri just has been consistently putting out good music for, like, the past 2 years. At least for me, and arguably some of his older stuff too is very good. So I'm happy with it. I'm just not as high on it as Eggy Pocket, which is very unfortunate because I really wanted to be. I was hoping for it.
I'm satisfied with this Bilmuri album. I was satisfied with Eggy Pocket. I'm satisfied with this. I don't really know if I can place one over the other. I think they're both pretty equivalent to me.
Yeah.
Which I'm sorry if that hurts you again, Derek, but
Nope. That's perfectly
Hurts me
fine.
a little bit, but
Satisfied is a good way to put it.
Is that where
Wow.
we end this episode?
I think so.
Man, September was fucking
Oof.
nuts.
Almost 3 hours.
No fucking way. What's the
In
time?
in
What's the
editing,
time?
in editing, I'll get it down to like 2 hours 30ish, but it'll be like either just about the same length as the singles or a little bit over.
Holy. I like this better though. We get to. I think I feel like we rush albums usually,
Mm.
and
I think
this feels
sometimes,
like
yeah.
we get to flesh out our opinions more.
Yeah, and I also think that too it was very conducive to this month. Maybe not in terms of like the quantity of the albums, but more so that it's like there was so much that we all liked on some level
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
it helps to have more time.
Yeah. So if anyone is still listening at this point, feel free to let us know if you want us to keep splitting these up into 2 parts when there's so much to talk about. I'm sure there's some months, like I remember earlier this year, back in like February, we had like 3 albums. It was what, Of Mice and Men, Normandy, and Architects, and that was like all that released that month.
Yeah.
So like we obviously are, in a month like that, we're gonna just shove it all into one episode. But in a month like this, where there is so much to talk about, should we keep splitting it up into 2 parts where we have more time to discuss the albums? Feel free to let us know. And follow us on social media at HiveMindRadio_ on Instagram and Twitter. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, so that way we can eventually have Derek in a cosplay.
Yeah.
And the rest of us will eventually do something as well when we hit other goals. Yeah, September was an insane month. I think September 2021 is maybe the craziest month of new music that I've heard since getting invested in this type of music back in like late 2018.
Yeah,
I would
for
agree.
sure.
I think there's some close contenders. I think October 2018 was nuts. And then September 2019 was also nuts.
August 2020 for me is what comes to mind.
Yeah, August 2020 as well.
October
I-
2021.
It's gonna be fucking crazy. I
Yeah.
think so.
It has
Minus
potential.
asking Alexandria. Shit album. Sorry, I just fuck.
What'd
There's
you-
something in my throat.
What'd you say? I didn't hear any of that. I cut that out.
Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, right.
Uh, I had a lot of fun talking about all this music this month.
I did too.
I had a lot of fun.
For better or for worse.
Yeah, for better or for worse. Thank you to anyone who's still listening. Thank you for supporting us. Feel free to stay tuned for more content from us, as we are trying to get an after hours episode in. I know it's been like 5 months since we last did one, but we have been working on trying to get another band on to talk about and discuss with. But until then, that's all for our September recap. If you haven't listened to part 1 where we discussed singles, go check that out. That was another fun episode. But that's all we've got for this month. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.
Night, everyone. Or day, yeah, true. Whatever time of day it is, have a good one.
Yeah.